It appears we are live. Or it would appear we are live. I always have to check these things because I've had issues with them in the past. Oh, okay, that speaker was on. That was not supposed to be on. So there was a bit of an echo there, but that's okay. Awesome. Okay, it's good to see that this is working. I've already had something strange, but I'll go into that in just a second. But awesome. Okay, so everything is more or less as it should be. So I'm going to wait a couple of moments for people to join, and then we will get started. But yeah, that's so weird. I'm going to have to tell you about this in a minute because I can't account for it. So yeah, I'll tell you about it in just a moment. I just want to give people a chance to jump in, okay? Because I know there's a few people that wanted to check this out. So we'll give it a few moments before we get started. This is going to be awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to do it. It's going to be a lot of fun for sure. So excited for this chat. Yeah, it's actually something that I've been wanting to do for a long time, I'll be honest with you. But yeah, I figured now is as good a time as any to do it, especially with Halloween just right around the corner. I figured, yeah, now is like the perfect time to do this sort of thing. And especially because, you guys wanted it. So I thought, yes, let's do it. So here we are. Exciting. Also, I've kind of adjusted my setup a little bit, so hopefully you can see me more clearly. There's not just some weird light coming from one angle. You'll be surprised what we have to do, okay, to try and get the setup. But yeah, hopefully this should be a lot clearer so you can actually properly see me. And yeah, just improve the quality overall. So yeah, we'll give it like couple more minutes maybe, and then we'll just get right into the intro. Hey Hannah, welcome. Nice to see you again. And you too, of course, LCB, always a pleasure. But yeah, I don't know. I'm so excited about this live. I mean, I love doing lives in general. I always enjoy doing them. But with this one, it's just, I don't know. I'm just excited for it. It's going to be so much fun. So yeah, especially because like our last live stream, for those of you who were a part of that, that was awesome. I really enjoyed that. So yeah, I can only imagine how much fun this one will be as well. So yeah, but it's nice to see you guys starting to pop up on the chat. If you are tuning in live, do say hi. It's always nice to see you guys in the chat. But yeah. So I'm going to give it to like the 5-minute mark in case anyone's like, still just getting their notifications, and then we'll get stuck into it. But yeah, I hope you guys are doing well though. And yeah, I can't believe like we've already grown to the extent that we have this year. It's absolutely insane. We'll get into that when I get into the intro, but still it's just like, what the hell is happening, And I'm very grateful for it. But yeah, got my incense on the go right now. But yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think you can really see it at the moment. It's quite interesting, this incense, actually. The way it burns, it's a little bit different from my other ones, but it's really nice. It's like one of my favorites, to be fair. But yeah. Okay, it's nearly 5 minutes, so you know what? I'm just going to get started because I don't want to leave you guys sitting in silence because that's a bit weird. So, hey everyone, welcome to the channel and to another live stream. Excited to have you here. Yes, we have been meaning to continue doing a live on a regular basis. For those of you who wondered, like, what happened to you, where you were gone for months and now you're back, doing lives. Yeah, I had really bad issues with my allergies this summer. That's why I wasn't doing lives for quite a period of time. I really needed to get that under control, but now it is, and now I'm back. So it's good to be back and doing these on a regular, right? Or should I say on the regular? So yes, here I am. For people who may be new and wondering who the hell I am, I'm High Priestess Demari. I'm a spiritual coach, psychic reader, a medium of sorts. The list goes on, to be honest. I don't really care for the titles so much, but yeah, there's a lot going on there, but welcome. So yes, this is my little corner of YouTube. I did have another channel previously. It does still exist, but I'm actually going to be doing something else with that channel. So that's why I don't really promote it right now, because that whole channel is about to transform. So you'll get updates about that soon. So this is my main channel right now. Here, obviously, we do readings, but with these live sessions, I do like them to be a little bit more interactive. Some of them will incorporate tarot readings as well as discussions. Last week was a little bit more interactive. We had a tarot reading at the end, but it was more about having a conversation around these topics and giving tidbits of information. So I know some of you guys really enjoyed that. So we'll definitely do more of that in the future. But yes, so that's essentially what we've been doing here on the channel, as well as obviously the daily reads, okay, collective and zodiac specific reads that come up on the channel. So we are here doing this particular one. Before I get into all of that though, we hit 4K yesterday. That's awesome. Okay. Like, I can't even tell you what that means. Like, reaching 4K, like going from being less than 1K to reaching 4K in 1 year. That's awesome. It's just, yeah, it's been a long slog, put it that way. So the fact that, finally my content is reaching the people that need to hear it, that's amazing. It just shows, what perseverance and belief and sticking to the course, following the call does, right? So that's awesome. So every single one of you who is part of the tribe, thank you so much. You have no idea what that means to me. Because honestly, there are times where I felt like, is it worth continuing? And is it, are the messages just falling on deaf ears? But no, I knew it was reaching the right people, and that one day, it would expand, and that's what's happening. So thank you so much. I really appreciate every single one of you that's been supporting the channel any way you do. It means the world to me. It really does. So just thank you. So yeah, that's where we're at the moment. It would be awesome. I have set like a mini goal to reach 5K at the end of the year. That would be amazing. Like, that would just be like, wow. But I'm not really bothered about that. That's just a little personal goal for me, but it would be cool if we could do that. So if you haven't subscribed, feel free to do so. Would love to have you as part of the community. But yeah, like, just the fact that we are growing and, more people are finding me and they resonate and, they get the vibe is awesome. Of course, you get the odd hater come in here and there, but we don't care for those. We just ignore them, But, to actually know that, I'm finding my tribe and they're finding me, that's awesome. So thank you. I really, really appreciate that. But yes, so back to the stream at hand, right? I'm doing this stream because you guys even wanted it. It came up in the last stream, right? So for those of you as part of the last live stream that we did, I put the question out there because we were talking about like, sort of crazy experiences, with the paranormal and supernatural and things of that nature. It just came up in conversation. And, I think was it you, Hannah, that mentioned it would be cool to like have like sort of campfire ghost stories or something like that? I think it was you. Yeah. Okay, cool. So you can actually thank Hannah for bringing this subject up. Okay. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, that would be cool. Why don't we do that on a live stream? And, it just kind of went from there. So I put it to a vote to see if that's something more of you would like. And apparently the answer was yes. So here we are. So I figured, okay, well, why not? Let's do that. So here we are. Real life paranormal events, stories, situations. Yes. So that's what this stream is about. This is going to be more about stories. Okay. So those that are like the more infamous. Okay. And I'll also be sharing, I believe, 3 of my own experiences. I've had a lot, okay, so I couldn't tell you all of them, but there's 3 like different types of experiences that I want to talk about that you may find interesting. It's, to be honest, it's not as heavy as some of the other ones because I don't want to just like, give you nightmares. That's not the goal here. This is more just for like fun, entertainment. It's just to, share experiences. It's always good to be able to talk to like minds about these things, right? Because there's a lot of it's taboo in some cases, and a lot of people don't feel comfortable talking about these things because they're afraid of ridicule or being scoffed at or just simply not being believed, right? So I do understand what that feels like, and honestly, for a long time I never used to talk about my experiences until later on as I got older, because unfortunately my family, even though they were spiritual and they were very aware of it, they were, somewhat fearful of it. So it was always like hush hush and pushed to one side, So unfortunately, I grew up feeling like weird and I couldn't talk about these things. But I'd been having experiences since birth, basically. So yeah, it's always been there, put it that way, in some capacity. So that's why, it's something that I feel like would be awesome to talk about as well, because like I say, it's not something I talk about all the time, apart from obviously those that are part of my inner circle. Then obviously we talk about certain things, right? So there is that. Okay. So I'm just going to read your comments quickly. I've been burning lavender, frankincense, incense before I go to bed. It seems to help to let the spirits know I'm off business hours. The spirit energy this month has been off the charts. Like, yeah, it's really ramped up again, for sure. There's been a lot more activity my way as well recently. And yeah, I've been having to do the same, make it clear, like, okay, it's time for me to check out now. It's like that. Because otherwise, sometimes they want to continue, or they, want to wake you up like I got in the middle of the night last night. And I'm just like, oh gosh, okay, we'll have a chat, but not now. So there's that. Nothing like malevolent or anything like that. It was just obviously there was a spirit that wanted to be heard, but I was like, okay, but please, not now. So and they politely left, which is nice. Okay. So thank you, Hannah. Yeah, thanks, Hannah. That was a great suggestion. I've had a lot of experiences with spirits, but primarily mine have been with deities. Nice. Very, very nice. Okay, so yeah, so that's essentially how this whole shebang, this topic, this whole thing came to be. Okay, so that was definitely Hannah's suggestion, if I remember correctly. She thinks that's the case too, so I'm pretty sure that's what it was. So yeah, the weird thing that happened, because I mentioned there was something strange that happened before I even started. So while I was setting up, while I was getting ready, I'd made sure everything was set up on my table, ready to go, lighting, all of that. I just went on my channel to, because I wanted to have it open, ready to go, so I could check that my live stream is actually working properly from my laptop. As I went on there, on my actual channel, the home page, right? The main page you get to on the channel, I noticed something. Something has changed. I did not change it, okay? I'm telling you this now. I swear on my life, I did not change it. On your channel, right? For those of you who post content, you'll know. On the sort of main page, you have the option to like add like a featured video, okay? So that's the one that's like larger, that comes up first. And then you have like your playlists or whatever else you put there, right? Like channels or like other channels, like subscriptions or whatever. That featured reading that's always at the top, that's usually like my latest reading or one of the latest readings, right? As you know, there was a collective reading that was up there for those of you who've been on my channel within the last like 24 to 48 hours, right? If you go on there now, do you see that that has changed to the live stream? So essentially you can see it listed twice. Let me know if that's the case for you. That you can actually see on the channel, the live stream listed twice. Yeah, I didn't change that. I actually didn't do that. And I just came up like on my channel, ready to go. And I was like, huh, what is that? And I went on there. I was like, No, it literally is twice. Why is it there? I haven't changed it. I haven't touched it. I haven't even been on that section of YouTube Studio today at all. I haven't touched it because I actually changed, like I actually put the live stream section, like I swapped that one with the last one, the old one, yesterday. So I've not been on there since yesterday. And this was fine earlier. It was only when I went back on there now that I see it's changed. How has that changed? I've not even touched it. So that was really weird. Okay, so that's already just like, oh, what's going on? But I swear to you, I did not change that. So I was like, what is happening? How did that change? I didn't change it. Why would I list it on there twice? I didn't, you know. So like that first video, that's not supposed to be a duplicate. That's supposed to be the collective reading still. So I'm glad it's not just showing up for me. That's why I wanted to ask you guys. I'm like, is this just on my side? Is this a glitch on my side, or is this something that's actually being displayed? And now you guys are telling me, no, that's actually being displayed. So strange. I don't know what that's about. I have no explanation for that, but I didn't change it. I promise you, right? That was just supposed to be listed there once, but for some reason, that got changed. So there you go. Something weird already happening. So awesome. Okay. But like I said, I've got my incense to go. I already lit some sage, right? To cleanse out any energy that may be lurking from, the reading I did earlier today. Okay. And also, because, I have been doing some personal readings and, pulling for myself and stuff. So I always like reset the energy after every reading. And also, I just want to set the intention, okay, because we are talking about things of a supernatural nature, a paranormal nature. I just want to set the intention that we are not invoking any of the energies, entities, spirits, okay, presences that we are discussing, okay, whether it's light or dark is irrelevant, okay. We are literally just talking on our experience, so that is not an invitation, okay. That is not an invitation for anything of any description to come through, to interact with myself, to interact with my audience, okay, who remain protected, guided, okay, spiritually led, and blessed. And that's all there is to that, okay? So I just wanted to set that intention straight off the bat so you guys know that all is well, okay? So just know that you will not be affected by us having this conversation. You are protected, you're held, you're guided, okay? And you're loved. So you're being held in the divine light. You have nothing to worry about. And this is a safe space, okay? Okay? All right, so I just wanted to set that intention real quick. So there has been lots of different types of documented paranormal events, okay? It goes all the way back, okay? Pretty much from the beginning. I mean, obviously you see it in religious texts, okay? You see it in like apocryphal scripts. You see it in all sorts of literature, folklore, right? There's tons and tons of, documented experiences that people have had with the supernatural, okay? Obviously, people can call it different things, attest those experiences to being the result of this, that, and the other, okay, based on, their perception, their belief, their faith, things of that nature, okay, that obviously plays a role. But it's interesting, though, how so many people from all walks of life, from different backgrounds, from different ethnic backgrounds, from different religious upbringings, okay, spiritual beliefs or lack of, different time frames, can attest to having so many similar experiences, being able to describe it in very similar ways. That in itself tells you that it's not just something someone concocted or dreamt up, okay? There are shared experiences. There are instances where multiple parties have experienced the same thing at the same time. It's very strange, right? How do you account for that if it is just, a figment of the imagination, if it's something that, your eye just happened to catch and didn't quite accurately, decipher what they were seeing? How do you account for all of these experiences that are sort of more continuous, ongoing, right? Not just a split second, but actually goes on over a period of days, weeks, months, even years, right? So that's what makes it so interesting, right? The fact that it's affected so many people, like millions and millions over the course of our history. So it is a very fascinating subject, as scary as it can be, it is very interesting. And I think that there has been a massive increase in recent times in looking at this from a different perspective rather than just like, treating it as a joke, and people who've had these experiences as a joke. I feel like more and more people are starting to be more open-minded, that maybe there's more than what meets the eye, right? Maybe we don't have all the answers. Maybe we can't just explain everything away, right, as easily as that. So it's interesting. It is interesting. Obviously, certain situations can be debunked, or certain things, there can be some other explanations, but then there's others where it can't be so easily dismissed or explained away, right? So there is that. Okay. I've been in Discord convos with my coven, and my mentor has heard my spirit guides through my mic, and I'm not the only one in the room. Ah, that's interesting. Yeah, technology. That happens a lot. The manipulation of technology is something that is being used more and more as it becomes more and more accessible and more prevalent all over the world, right? Especially with like the internet and stuff as well. I feel like with there being so many satellites, so much coverage everywhere, yeah, I mean, it's very easy for them to use that, right? And to come through in various locations, right, using those technologies. Right, with various mythologies, there's a lot of similar threads, definitely. I've been on haunted tours with my parents, and they've had encounters that's changed their perspective. Well, that's it, People often say, I'll believe it when I see it, and then when they see it, they're like, they have some weird experience they can't account for, and it's like, okay. But then, of course, you also do get some people who are just, diehard skeptics. When I tell you about one of the stories that I have to share, you'll see an example of that. Okay, someone who just, cannot have their view of reality shattered. They'll cling to it with all that they've got. So that does happen as well, unfortunately, at times. Rather than accepting that maybe there may be something else going on. I'm not saying that anyone has to assume anything, but it's good to be open-minded that maybe there's more possibilities than, you would sometimes otherwise believe, okay? I had a spirit follow me for 3 years, asked me to help her son. That's the thing. A lot of the time, spirits and ghosts, people who have passed on that haven't been able to transition, a lot of the time they are looking for help. Not always, of course. There are some that are just looking to cause carnage, but there are some who are definitely, there's a lot that are stuck and needing some kind of assistance or want to be heard. That seems to be a big part of it, right? Yeah. Andrew, hi, I'm a Christian. Hi, Andrew, welcome. Yes, you are very welcome here. That's the thing, with my channel, it's not for people who are just like spiritual or belong to a certain religion. I like to embrace people of all walks of faith, really. As long as everyone's respectful to everyone's, religious differences or spiritual differences, differences of opinions. You can have healthy topics, like healthy discussions around topics. Then I'm all for that, because my aim is to communicate, to connect people, to support people, right? Regardless of those differences, right? Yeah. So I've had so many spirits contact me, it's crazy. Her son actually did need help. I finally contacted him. Oh, that's amazing. So yeah, that's awesome, and it's crazy how those messages can come through, in such a way, right? So that's amazing that you were able to actually help him. That's that's divine intervention right there for sure. Awesome. Okay. So yes, like I said, there's a lot of different paranormal events, situations that take place, okay? I did kind of identify 4 sort of main groups, okay, that may fall under, right, in terms of like the documented types of events that may take place or what people generally experience, okay? So you have your hauntings, right? So that would be the haunting of buildings, infrastructures, homes, right? Property, or a certain location, right? It can even be natural environments. It doesn't always have to be man-made. It can be natural environments that end up haunted, of course. Often we'll hear of like haunted forests, woods, lakes, wells, things of that nature, farmhouses even, right? Not just like homes or abandoned like insane asylums or hotels or whatever, right? Or even ones that are operational, right? So you have those kinds of hauntings. Then you have psychic attacks, spiritual attacks, right? That come from entities or people who have, passed on, that have died, right? So there's that, okay? And obviously those attacks can take different forms. That can be anything from harassing the person, infesting, every environment that they come into contact with, just like following them around. That could even go to the extremes of actually physically attacking that person or attacking them mentally, emotionally, causing distress. It can take many different forms, right? The, actual like uh encounters, direct encounters, right? Then you have your sightings, right? So this is where people can see something, but nothing else happens beyond that. So, you may see a cryptid, running through a wood somewhere, or you might see a ghost in the window of an abandoned house, or, you may see some kind of dark entity or shadow person or something sort of lurking, around a certain environment, things like that, right? Things that you see, but not much else happens. It's just something you saw or came across, right? Sightings. And then you have, which I think most people would say is the scariest of all, which would be possession, okay? This is something obviously a lot more infernal. It is inherently demonic in nature, okay? So that's usually what you're dealing with in that case. And it's, to be honest, like from what I gather, from what I've researched, it does seem to be way rarer than everything else that we've just covered, right? So that could be the possession of people, animals, or inanimate objects, such as dolls, right? That happens a lot. We hear, well, it doesn't happen a lot, but often when you hear of like inanimate objects being possessed, it's often like dolls, or it could be a mirror, or it could be a chair or something like that, right? Yeah, there's actually a few cases where, like objects have become infamous because of the energy associated with it and what happens to people that are around the object for a period of time, or if they use it, interact with it in some shape or form, right? So it's not just, people or even animals, like objects can become possessed. That does happen, right? Yeah, exactly. Annabelle is like the most obvious one, probably the most well-known, most famous, right? So yeah. So in terms of like those kind of things, you like, in terms of like hauntings and stuff, you've probably heard of a lot of cases. Like you have like the Conjuring stories, Amityville, stuff like that, right? These are like hauntings. Okay, it does touch on other things as well, like the Conjuring house, was it the Arnold estate, right? Where the first Conjuring film was based on. The Arnold estate, that actually has like ghosts, but also like something demonic there. And supposedly, I think her name was Caroline, the woman who was inhabiting that house, where this case is based on, she ended up becoming possessed, right? And that whole shebang went down. But yeah, you have those kinds of infamous like hauntings, right? And then, that does incorporate also spiritual attacks, things like that. Okay, that often comes into it as well when it's something darker in nature. Okay. Then you have obviously your sightings we talked about in the live last week when we was talking about, like some of the cryptid sightings like the Wendigos or skinwalkers or things like that. Shapeshifters, entities, right? Dark entities like shadow people, ghostly figures, possibly even something demonic like a demon, or something of that nature, right? Where it's something outside of the ordinary, something that's either no longer alive or something that's not natural, of the natural world, right? So there's that. And then, like I said, the possession of, people, objects, things of that nature by entities. But yeah, a lot of the time I have found there has been quite a few cases where it involves dolls like Annabelle, Robert, there's even Peggy. These are like the most famous ones, I would say. There's also a couple of like dolls in Japan that are locked away in a shrine. I can't remember I can't remember what they're called. There was one in particular that's like the most known. Like she belonged to a little girl, and like the little girl, like it was similar to the Robert situation, if you've heard of Robert the doll, where like she was stuck to her like glue. It was like a mini her, and people used to say, oh, she looks so much like you. So it was almost like the doll took on the energy of her doppelganger, and that's how I think that attachment was made between the doll and something nefarious, something malevolent, okay? And it was like something that plagued the family for a long period of time, to the point where eventually they did have to actually entrust it to Shinto priests. So it actually resides, I think, behind glass at within a shrine. So yeah, crazy. So kind of similar to Annabelle, being locked away and kept behind glass, right? Yeah, because it's so malevolent, the spirit that's attached to it, and it brings like misfortune. Same with the Robert the doll. For those of you who know of the Robert the doll story or don't know about Robert the doll, like that entity that's attached to it is so malevolent, right? That the museum they keep it at, they have to not only like keep it behind a glass box, like it's literally sat in a glass box on display. They have to give people a disclaimer that beforehand, like if you're rude to Robert, if you take his picture without his permission, if you goad him or say he's a fake or call him names or anything like that, there's a good chance that something horrific will happen, okay? Because there's been so many cases where people have gone there just to like, ridicule and don't take it seriously, and then horrible things happen. And it got to the point where they were getting thousands and thousands, and they still do, thousands and thousands and thousands of apology letters. They had them at one point all displayed on the walls, right? All around the room. But there was so many, like literally, I think they said they're up to like over 10,000 of these letters now. They've had so many apologies that they can't display them all, but they keep getting them where people have not taken it seriously and horrific things have happened to them and the people they were with, where people have had like serious health issues, car crashes, even passed on, really, really serious stuff, So, things like that, especially like cursed items or possessed items. Yeah, I would not take that lightly. Me personally, I would not take that lightly because it can really destroy your life. And it has done, like to a lot of people that don't take that stuff seriously. It's like, how many of you, for those of you who've ever been on TikTok, I don't use TikTok anymore. I can't stand the platform, to be honest with you. It's not for me. I did have a channel on there. It's probably still there, but it's just not for me. But yeah, I remember seeing at one point these videos, and sure, some of them are probably staged, but there were some where I feel like they weren't. And people would find like some weird shrine or some weird doll or artifact or something that was left. It's clearly for some kind of spiritual purpose, right? And you'll have like a couple of guys or young kids like, oh, what's that? And start taking it away or playing with it and stuff, touching it, and you're just like, that's a surefire way to get cursed, It's like, why would you do that? But people do, especially for the views. They're like, oh, it's, let's just poke around and see what happens. And then shit hits the fan. So it's not something I would ever, it's not something I would ever encourage anyone to do, for sure, especially when it's clearly something that has some kind of spiritual connotation that is being left for a specific purpose. Leave it alone, especially if you don't know what it is. Leave it alone. Okay, that's my advice. But yeah, I'm just going to read your comments. Hi there. Hi, you're so pretty. Slay. Oh, thank you so much. That's so sweet. I appreciate that. It's nice that you can actually see me properly for once, rather than it being like half my face lit and half it just being in like darkness, Yeah. Hey, my sister, can you say... Why do you want me to say that for? I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to say that. Hi, saw your last live. Okay, awesome. Hi, Sans. Thanks for tuning to this one as well. The spirit world is alive. It absolutely is. It's alive and kicking and doing well. Okay, there's a lot of activity for sure. And I just got Don't Leave Me Through the Spirit Tula. Oh my God. Crazy. But yeah, this is it, So there's a lot of different types of things, right, going on. A lot of strange cases, a lot of weird stuff out there. There's still some stuff possibly from, there's stuff out there from older cases or, things that happened decades ago that is still, like you still don't want to mess with today. Like it's not something you want to do. Okay. So like if you do visit any of these like haunted museums where they've got all these crazy artifacts, I don't know why, but it's interesting how there seems to be so much of this in the States, right? I mean, yeah, you see stuff like that here. Like I've been to like, was it the biggest museum of witchcraft? It's actually here in the UK. It was in Cornwall, right? And I actually went there for my birthday years ago. And we got told about it by the locals. Really nice people down there, by the way. If you ever get a chance to go to Cornwall, do it. Like it's so chill and it's really pretty, and the people are just so nice down there, like way nicer than people in London. And I can tell you that because I was literally born in London. Okay, go there instead. It's really nice. And yeah, they told us about this museum. We were like, that sounds crazy. Let's go check it out. So me and my friends went to check it out. And yeah, they had some stuff there. I mean, to be fair, it's not massive. It's not a massive place, but they did have some interesting information. There was some crazy artifacts, from back in the day, and obviously a lot of stuff to do with like the witch trials and stuff like that. But yeah, that was interesting. But, in terms of like haunted items and stuff like that, I'm not sure if we have something like that over here, but I know there's a few places like that in the States. And a lot of like these more infamous cases, for some reason, they do happen to be in the US. So I don't know what you guys got going on there. I know you guys had some crazy history, but we had crazy history here as well. But I don't know, it seems to be a lot more of it going on over there, or like there's more like infamous cases there, right? And artifacts being collected there. So I don't know, if you do end up going to any of these kinds of museums, just don't take it lightly. Even if you're skeptical, just don't take it lightly. Don't make fun of stuff they tell you to not make fun of. Like, don't try and take anything you shouldn't take, because you just don't need that in your life, right? That's just a heads up. I know most of you guys are like, we wouldn't do all that anyway, but I just want to make sure you guys are safe. That's all, because wow, there's some really crazy stuff out there. And just like some of the stories, the fact that even it's still affecting some of these, like some of the people that actually go there today, it's crazy. So yeah, so talking of some of these more well-known cases, obviously you have like the hauntings we mentioned, like the ones that are featured in The Conjuring and stuff like that, those that were investigated by Ed and Lorraine Warren. Obviously they're like two of like the most famous and infamous like demonologists. Okay, so yeah, there's a lot of their stories that are sort of made more mainstream. I do believe, yeah, I do believe, though, there is another that's popular that I do want to mention. Well, it is very popular, but not everyone may know of it, but I think a lot of you guys will have heard of it. The Bell Witch haunting, right? In Adams, Tennessee. That's a really interesting case. That one goes all the way back to like what, the 1800s, right? It was like this area was still being developed. It was like brand new. They were like one of the first families to move there. Um, and yeah, it's like this family moved in. I think, well, I can't say for sure, but it seemed like they never had any sort of real paranormal stuff going on until they were on this property, right? They moved into this house, and then that's when things started happening. There was no reports that anything was happening before they moved into the house, right? And so they moved in. This was the father was John Bell, right? And I think he had like 3 daughters or something like that. His wife, okay, as well. And the thing is, all of them experienced paranormal activity in and around the home. Like they saw weird things outside. They heard weird noises at night, especially at night. There was always like weird stuff going on. I think the wife even saw like a demonic looking dog or something like that. I know the John Bell did as well, and it was acting really strangely, and it was very vicious and stuff like that. I think it was the youngest daughter, Betsy, that was the one out of the children that was being physically attacked the most, like being like pinched and scratched and bitten and stuff like that. Um, but all of them experienced paranormal going ons, like stamping around the house when everyone was in bed, banging on the walls, things of that nature. Um, and the thing is, things were escalating, right? It was starting to affect their mental health and emotional health significantly. Okay. The family were very well liked, well known in the area. They were very much like, part of the beating heart of the community, right? So seeing how they were starting to become more quiet, more withdrawn, and especially John Bell, because like I said, he was kind of being targeted quite a bit along with his youngest daughter, so they could see the change, right? And they were wondering like what happened to him, what's going on. At first they didn't really want to open up to people because they were afraid that no one was going to take them seriously, right? They didn't, especially because I think John Bell was quite, he was quite a proud man. Like he's not someone who would come up with some fantastical story. He would always like, be pretty straight talking, or like he was kind of described as someone who was quite like, rational, logical, that sort of thing. But eventually it got to the point where, they had to ask for help because it was getting out of control, right? It was starting to affect even people that came to visit, like other relatives and stuff. So, apparently the townsfolk, they did take them seriously. They didn't dismiss them and thought, oh, they were crazy. They actually, because of who they were and how, sort of rational they were, they actually believed them. They took them seriously, but they thought maybe there was like, someone playing a prank on them or just trying to like, scare them off. Maybe thought that someone wanted the property, so they were trying to scare them away so they could take it from them or something like that. So they actually had people from the town, like friends and acquaintances, like come and actually visit and even like stay at times, and they would hear the scratching, they would hear the banging, they would hear all this stuff, and they'd go check out, but they wouldn't necessarily see anything. And for a while, I think the most prevalent theory was that it could have been their neighbor, a woman called, is it Kate Batts? Yeah, Kate Batts. They believe that she may have been a witch, okay, because she was kind of eccentric. She kept to herself. You know how it is. If you're different, you're automatically a witch, it's kind of like that. But apparently she was odd, right? And she could actually be somewhat hostile at times, apparently. I don't know, but that's what is reported in some cases, that she could be, a little bit hostile. So, they thought that she was the one that was doing it, that she was trying to drive them out of the house, basically. She took offense to it, obviously, being called a witch. And, at first, I think she was like adamantly saying that it wasn't her, that she had nothing to do with it, da, da, da. But yeah, so there was a bit of a dispute with that between like the rest of the town and Kate Batts, So they thought that she was like essentially the Bell Witch. Okay. So yeah, things escalated pretty badly to the point where John actually started seeing more and more apparitions. He was starting to hear voices talking to him, telling him that he's gonna die, that they're gonna curse him, that he's gonna experience all this like illness and misfortune until eventually it was gonna like kill him, right? That was the thing. So he was really struggling. He started to get major depression. He couldn't get out of bed. He was getting major headaches, feeling nauseous. Like he just couldn't function at this point, you know. It got really, really bad. And people didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to help him, you know. So he got more and more sick. It seemed like he was like, I don't know, suffering like some kind of like illness or he'd been poisoned or something, but he was really sick. And you know, his actual behavior even around his family at times got really dramatic. There was even one instance, I don't know if it was, I think he may have had a son, or it was one of his daughters, but I think he had a son, or there was someone there. And apparently, like, he started acting like he was possessed, like his body was all contorting, and, you know, this weird voice came out, and he was saying all these crazy things that didn't make sense, you know, and they were scared, you know, and they were trying to like shake him to snap out of it. And then when he came to, he was crying. He was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to die soon. It's not going to be long now. I'm going to die. You know, obviously the family were taken aback by this. And unfortunately, he did. He actually died not that long after that happened. Um, you know, so unfortunately, yeah, John Bell, he didn't make it. And I think the family did actually stay there for a long period of time, if I remember correctly. Like they didn't just, you know, move out after he passed. He was buried near there, or he was buried there. And they continued to live there, I believe, for quite a period of time. They definitely still stayed in Adams as far as I know, because there was a whole thing where you know, the witch was still plaguing them, and you know, they didn't like the younger daughter, like I said, to the point where, you know, they were actually trying to dictate their life. They didn't like the fact that she was in love with this guy from the town. They didn't want the union to go ahead because they were supposed to get engaged and stuff. So, you know, the girl was still being afflicted by this witch, right? So crazy, crazy story. And that was, like I said, in the 1800s. But yeah, it was really, really an infamous case, right? Where literally, like, people in the town actually believed that they were being afflicted by some kind of spirit. Apparently, a friend of theirs as well. This is something I forgot to mention. Apparently, a friend of theirs did some digging, and they found out that the farm could have actually been built on like sacred native lands. Like it could have been an actual like native burial ground, right? Based on the research, you know, of what was there prior to the house being built. So they believe that could have also been a source for the negative energy that was, you know, affecting the family, right? And maybe some of those spirits were also pissed off at the fact that there was a house built over their graves, right? So there's that. And I think that part of the story is what actually inspired films like Poltergeist, because obviously that's a big theme, right? Where they move into this house, things start happening, and they find out the house was built on some like native burial grounds, but the grave sites were like the actual graves, the bodies wasn't actually transported. They just moved the headstones, right? So those bodies were still there, and that's why they were being afflicted. So I think, you know, it did inspire quite a few films, that story alone, never mind everything else that came after that. So that one's quite an interesting one. But yeah, I haven't actually like properly read into that for quite a while. Like, yeah, I went over bits and pieces here and there, just refresh my memory, but very interesting story. You should look into that yourself if you haven't already heard of it. Usually when I go to haunted places, I show the utmost respect. I let them know my intentions. It's funny how you talk about them now, and I got Devil on the app before you mentioned them with the Warrens. I think one of the presidents visited the Bell Adams farm, and Andrew Jackson got scared out of his wits. Yeah, that's it. You know, it wasn't just the family that experienced weird stuff. It was people who actually visited as well. Like they were affected. Okay, they saw some things they couldn't account for. They heard stuff, like it freaked people out. Like I said, even people in the town that was trying to help them, that would stay there, they'd be so freaked out by the things that they experienced, they would end up leaving. They wouldn't want to stay there, and they didn't know how to deal with that situation, of course, because they already, like, is, even the more like hardened men, they would check everything out and they couldn't account for the cause of it. There was clearly no kids messing around. There wasn't anyone on the property that they could see, so people got really, really spooked by that. So I think that's why that one is so infamous, because it was something that was witnessed and experienced by so many people, not just the family themselves, right? So there's that. And speaking of presences, right, being vicious to the point where they can even attack you, there's a few entities that can do that. Okay, obviously there's a popular one that people talk about called the hag. Okay, which I mean, you could say they're kind of like a witch, the spirit of a witch, but they kind of come under more like the similar category of shadow people for me, because of how they operate. They seem to be parasitic in nature, and it's like often people will see this when they're experiencing sleep paralysis, but not always. Okay, people have also seen it when they've been awake and up and about doing their own thing, and I can attest for that because I've seen it myself, and so has some of my family. So there's that. But yeah, and a lot of people have reported when they've seen this hag, that it's been sat on their chest when they're trying to sleep. They find it hard to breathe, there's pressure, or that this thing is smothering them, trying to choke them, scratch them, bite them, like all sorts of crazy stuff, and they have visible like marks from this experience and stuff. So yeah, those kind of experiences are really intense, of course, because you're literally being attacked by something that you can't explain, right? Like that shouldn't be possible, and yet it's happening to you. So those things are really scary, of course. Then you have, like I said, your cryptid sightings. Like there's so many stories, even on YouTube, you can find tons and tons and tons of like Wendigo stories, cryptid stories, dogman stories, stuff like that, right? So many, right? There's so many. There's like whole compilations of like all these different stories. And what's fascinating as well is that apparently there's a bunch of them that get shared by park rangers as well. So people who are actually like caretakers of these national parks and stuff. A lot of them have had some very weird supernatural experiences, not just with wendigos and stuff like that, but like all sorts of things. They've had all sorts of experiences they can't account for. There seems to be so much activity in a lot of these national parks, which is really interesting. So that's something that fascinates me as well. Obviously, I'll be honest with you, I've never been to the States. I've never been there. I would love to visit one day. There's a few places I'd like to check out, but I definitely want to check out some of these like national parks, or a national park. Because I mean, first of all, it looks like, a throwback to like Jurassic times in some cases. It's amazing. And then, you have all these like crazy stories coming out of them. There seems to be something about the preservation of these sites, right? And the natural environment that seems to attract or hide certain energies, right? Or certain presences, certain entities, cryptids, things of that nature, right? So yeah, it's fascinating to me. So it'd be really cool to check it out. So if any of you guys have, seen any of these national parks, seen anything weird at any national park, let me know, because that would be fascinating for me to hear. Like, it's just, I don't know, it just blows my mind. Okay, when I hear some of these stories, I'm like, what? I would love to sit down and chat with a park ranger, who's been doing it for years at one of these big national parks, because I'm sure the stories they have is just, yeah. So I hope to do that one day. Fingers crossed I get to do that one day. So there's that. But it's not also just like rangers. Like I said, people who've also visited, like hikers, people just, going for a day out with families and stuff. Obviously, you also have those like 411 cases, missing 411 cases, where people have just like vanished and disappeared and come back days later or weeks later or even months later, and they have no memory of what happened to them. Or like, you know, especially children that they just disappear, and then they find them the next day like miles away in a place that they couldn't have got to themselves, especially wearing what they were wearing, you know, really crazy instances like that. And a lot of the time when, you know, they ask these kids what happened to you, they talk about these like beings, like some kind of being or cryptid that like got them there, transported them there in some shape or form. So those stories really fascinate me as well, because it's just so out of the ordinary, right? So yeah, any stories like that would be awesome, because very interesting. So let me just go back. I love your hair. Oh, thank you. And your nails, like, oh, thank you very much. I actually I'm gonna get them changed next week. I'm having like some designs done for Halloween, because funnily enough, I'm going to a Halloween themed wedding, go figure. So yeah, I'll be looking very different as a wedding guest this time. It will be Halloween inspired. I'm actually thinking of going as, because we have to dress up, or like it's not mandatory, but obviously they'd like it if people dress up as well. So I'm thinking of going as Carrie. You know, if you know the film Carrie, that's kind of the theme I'm going for. Not completely soaked in blood, but maybe just like a little bit, like it's just starting to fall the bucket. I don't know. So it's something like that. That's what I was thinking of going, because it's just something I've not done before. So yeah, I'll definitely get some like Halloweeny themed nails done soon. Hello, hi there. Set a fire in my soul. Welcome. Oh, cool name. Set a fire in my soul. Caitlin, your hair, love it. Oh, thank you. Is it Caitlin? Am I saying that right? Caitlin? Obviously with my accent, but you know. My experience was about daylight. Can't breathe, freeze up. So your experience took place in daytime, did it? Yeah, it does happen. I mean, I can tell you that as well, for sure. Cool, you're amazing. Don't end your life soon. Oh, I'm glad you're enjoying it. Because, yeah, like I said, I love having these little discussions with you guys. I visited Gettysburg. Is it Gettysburg? Gettysburg, I think. Gettysburg State Park. Sorry, I said skate park. Can you imagine? Well, you never know. State Park and the battlefield. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah, that's significant. Yeah. Okay. And had some experiences there. I can imagine, right? I can imagine, because yeah, the history, the historic relevance, right? From the war and stuff, and how bloody that would have been and traumatic. Yeah, I can only imagine. Wow. Okay. So yeah, I imagine there's a lot of residual energy there as well, on both sides, you know. LCB, going hiking in Hawaii is definitely an experience. Oh my gosh, I would love that. I would love to go to Hawaii one day. That's a dream for sure. Yeah, that needs to happen one day. Yeah, it looks amazing there, to be honest with you. That's high on my list. I'm not gonna lie. Definitely need to visit Hawaii one day. Oh, nice. I'm thinking of dressing up as Sherlock Holmes. Oh, you should do that. That's amazing. You should definitely do that. I smelled gunpowder in broad daylight. It was wow. Wow. Okay, yeah. That's another thing, when your olfactory senses get going. I know there's a word for it. I don't remember. Let me find it quickly, because I can never remember these words. Oh yeah, so there's two words for it. There's clairolfactance, which makes sense, olfactory, right? That's your sense of smell. And then clairaugustance or augustance. Yeah, exactly. That's it. That's it, Hannah. So see, Hannah knows. Yeah, that's very much a thing. I've experienced that as well. Not gunpowder though, but I've smelled perfume before. And I recognized whose perfume it was. It belonged to my grandma, actually. It was pretty cool. Yeah, and that was I think maybe a couple of months after she passed. I wasn't actually in the country at the time. When she passed, I was actually traveling in New Zealand, and I was staying. This is not one of the stories I was going to share. This is just extra. And I was staying in a hostel, right, backpacking with my partner at the time. And I was just chilling and just reflecting on life and things. And then I just felt like a little, almost like a tap on the shoulder, and then I just smelt her perfume, like it was like a blast of it, and I was like, oh my god, that's grandma. And it was almost like she just wanted me to know that everything's okay, because she knew obviously I was upset as well, that she had passed, and I'd missed her a lot, and I was sad that I wasn't there at the time. So I think she just wanted to let me know everything's okay and that she's still with me. So that really meant a lot, So I did experience that then very strongly. Like it was like there, just a whiff of it. So yeah, that was nice. Yeah, I get my grandpa's cologne a lot when he stops by. Yeah, that's really nice. I love that when that happens, just to let you know, like, hey, we're still watching over you, which is, yeah, it's nice. So yeah. But yeah, so there's that. But then there's another case, right? Talking about hauntings and spiritual attacks and possession cases and all of that. There is a more recent one that's become infamous, okay? Have you guys heard of the Latoya Ammons case? Latoya Ammons. Her and her family was based in, I believe was it Gary, Indiana? Yeah, Indiana. And this was something that happened more recently. I think it happened in like 2014, something like that. Okay, this one is very interesting because there were several people that got involved. It ended up causing the police to be involved, CPS to be involved, mental health services, okay, as well as like medical stuff as well. Like it got wild. Okay, so you can look into it in more detail if you want like the full story. But basically, the family, I believe it was a mother, the grandmother, and 3 children, maybe 4, okay, moved into a home in Gary, Indiana, okay. If I remember correctly, Gary is a pretty rough place, right? I may be mistaking that for somewhere else, but if I remember correctly, Gary's supposed to be like pretty hardcore, right? It's like very rundown, very impoverished. It's tough, right? I think. So, the vibe is already probably not the best, okay, if that's the case. I believe that's correct. I might be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. But this particular house, even when you look at the picture of it, I instantly got bad vibes, like bad vibes. And yeah, it was really just, oh, I don't know. There's just something, when I looked at the picture, it just creeped me out. There's just something wrong with that house. I felt it as soon as I first saw the picture. I laid eyes on the picture. I was like, there's something wrong with this fucking house, right? So they move in, and it doesn't take long for things to start to go wrong, right? Things start happening. Things are breaking in the house. The mum at first thinks it's the kids playing up. It's not. They swear blind it's not them. Other things start happening, it's like, for example, they started to get the typical like infestation of like big black like bottle flies, the type that you usually only get when there's something dead nearby. Yeah, lots of that. Okay, like in an infestation of it, in like swarms in particular areas. Yeah, very much like Amityville vibes, very similar to that, right? It gives me that same vibe, right? When I was looking into the story and I look at the house, same kind of vibe. So there was that going on. Then they started noticing like a change in behavior, right, in themselves as well as each other, right? The mom mentions that she felt like she was getting possessed, okay, by this like overwhelming presence, like it was very oppressive, right? The grandma is like one of the only ones who said they wasn't affected by the presence, because she was very prayed up, she was very religious, and that she believed she had like an anointing, like she had some kind of spiritual protection, okay, and her guides was protecting her. But it seemed to be plaguing everyone else. Like she still experienced stuff, like she still saw stuff, but she wasn't being like taken hold of, right, in the same way that the others were. So yeah, So there's that. So things start getting more and more oppressive in the house. Things are breaking, things are being thrown. Some of the kids actually start being like attacked, okay? To the point where there's like biting, scratching, things of that nature. Especially, I believe it's the 7-year-old son, right? I had to take a couple of notes because my memory's like scattered. I'm like a bit of a scatterbrain at times. So yeah, the 7-year-old boy was like, because a lot of the time you'll find in these cases that a like a particular person will be like the entity's main target, right? That's what you find a lot of the time, right? There's always one person that gets like targeted the most, or a couple of people that gets targeted the most. And that's what happened, right? Like the mom felt like she was getting possessed pretty quickly or pretty early on. But the little boy was like the one who was being like attacked the most, right? So they were the ones experiencing like, physical attacks, right? It seemed to be centered around them. Not only that, it was like the other siblings were starting to become possessed themselves. They started acting out, their behavior started changing. They started to become more vicious, right? And more nasty and snarly, and their expressions would change. Apparently, the mum said like their expressions would change and distort, like their eyes would be bulging, and they would speak in a very deep voice and things of that nature. And whew, feel a change in energy just then. So we'll just get the sage going. Because we're not having any bad energy here, I'm telling you. But yeah, and it was like things escalated pretty quickly, right? Things escalated pretty quickly. And it seemed to be more so targeting the son. So he was getting attacked by his siblings. He could see things going on. There was like, a bad presence around him. I think at one point he was even talking to an entity. He thought he was talking to another little boy, and there wasn't another little boy, things like that. So that's when, obviously things are escalating, kids starting to get hurt. The police got involved when there was like an incident or a couple instances where the child got hurt. Obviously, CPS got called. And yeah, that's the thing, it was like it got to the point where the authorities had to step in. So the authorities stepped in, and they were trying to find out what exactly is going on, if this is like a shared delusion, right? Because that's kind of what they wanted the psychiatrists to determine, right? If it's like a shared delusion, if they are hallucinating, if there's like psychosis or some kind of mental health issue, at the core, that's at the core of it. So that's what they started doing. They started not interrogating. Oh my gosh, that's not what I mean. But they started questioning the family members and stuff to do like, their report, their analysis, right? Diagnosis. And I think they put it down. Well, I think some of them believed that, yeah, there was like some kind of shared delusion, right? And it's funny how the energy only shifted when I started talking about this case. So yeah, if you have some incense, get it on the go, feel free, okay? If you want to, check out of this one, you're welcome to do so, okay? Because the energy shifted strong when I started talking about this case. So yeah, I don't blame you, okay? But yeah, so they got involved, right? Because the kids got hurt. So he got checked out. He was okay though, right? But they were worried about his mental well-being. I know at one point, the kids were actually removed from the house, from the mother for a period of time, because they felt like they were, the mother was endangering the children. And obviously this was devastating to her, right? However, she did regain custody of her children, I believe, right? Things started happening again though in the house, right? I think even when they were with CPS though, things wasn't all just like fine all of a sudden, right? But there was an instance where, the son got hurt, he got taken to a hospital, weird shit started happening in the hospital, right? like he started act because he got hurt by one of the siblings, and like, you know, they were starting to see weird stuff happen to him. Like he was starting to distort in terms of his appearance, like his face like pulling mad expressions. He started speaking in a deep voice, kind of like his other siblings did. His eyes were like rolling and bulging. He would walk in very strange ways, like he would like be all distorted and stuff. Like he actually at one point, and this is in the presence of they say like medical stuff. I don't know if it was a doctor or a nurse. I think it was a nurse, but I don't know for sure. But in front of staff, and I think a police officer, the 7-year-old boy apparently was walking backwards in a really messed up way, grabbed a hold of his grandma's arm, wouldn't let go, and like flipped and started climbing up the walls. So he was just up at the wall like friggin' Spider-Man while still yanking his grandma's arm. So apparently that was actually witnessed. And obviously everyone was freaking out. The hospital staff was freaked out. No one knew what the hell was going on. It was a whole mess, right? But that case is like really, really insane. But even to this day, you know, even though there was witnesses to certain behavior, certain things that happened, right? It seems like there's still a lot of divide as to whether or not people think it was a genuine case of possession or if it was, you know, like something mental health related. So yeah, but you see how quick the energy changed when we got into this subject. And it's funny because when I was thinking about it before and I was just typing some notes, no problem. As soon as I started talking about it, though, it just shifted. So that makes me think that maybe there is something to it, you know. Maybe it's not just a shared delusion or psychosis. Like maybe, you know, there was something very dark. Because like I said, just looking at the house, I feel like there's something not right with that place. No. Put it this way, if I was there, I would not go into that house. That's one of the environments I probably wouldn't go into. No. So even if I had to investigate for whatever reason, I don't think I'd be comfortable going into that house because I'm telling you, something's wrong. You know, something is very wrong there. I don't know if it is because of what they believe was afflicting them there. But there's something messed up about that house. That's what I will say. Yeah. So okay, so we have a fucking troll here. We'll just ban them, no problem. I put a frequency app reader on my forehead and it said witch. Okay, how do you feel about that? Okay. I just got some frankincense going. Yeah, the smoke is swirling like crazy. I'm telling you, there's something weird about that case, right? There's certain cases you hear about and you're just like, nah, there's definitely something to it. Like, I don't know if it's exactly as, you know, it's described, but there's definitely something to it, you know? So, yeah, there's that. But that was definitely one of them. But I could not believe how quickly the energy shifted. Not even because a bloody troll turned up at that time. But it was just like, I'm telling you, as soon as we started getting to the story, like I really don't think they were making it up. Like I said, there was even people that saw stuff that they can't explain how that happened, right? But the energy, like I said, as soon as I heard about it and I saw that house, I was like, no, there is something evil there. I'm telling you. There is something evil in that house. It is no, okay? And for the energy to shift like that when I started talking about it, I was like, get the sage on. No, we're not having that here. We rebuke that immediately. So yeah, no, I don't think it's BS personally. I just don't. Not based on the energy. No. Like I said, I've not looked into it or anything like that. But no, I don't think it's BS. I think there's definitely something to it. It's totally accurate. That's the thing, like, no, there's definitely something evil in that house for sure. I think it did get pulled down in the end, if I remember correctly. Like the house was demolished in the end. Initially, they had to stay there because, unfortunately, she was having hard times, she was on hard times. She couldn't just move, like, and then she hadn't even been in the house that long. So obviously, it was costing her money. So I can understand it's not as easy. People always say that, like, oh, just leave, like you have necessarily the means to do that. A lot of the time people don't. So it's not as easy to say, oh, just leave. So it took a while before she could actually move from the house. And then when she did, I think it got leveled, I think. But yeah, it's a creepy house, put it that way. The spirit got into the troll. Probably. If you're coming here spouting nonsense and trying to attack me, then yeah, you've obviously got some issues, That's the way I see it. Like, no, you've obviously got some low vibing energy that's attached to you or you're harboring, so that's fine. You can just go over there. But yeah, it happens. Unfortunately, that's part and parcel of being on the internet. You're gonna have people that troll you and harass you and be nasty to you just for the sake of doing it, especially when they think that, they're anonymous. They think they can speak to you anyhow and get away with it, but that's not the case. So yeah, but I just don't even worry about it. I just boot them off, to be honest with you. I get it, like, especially like I said now, like, with the channel growing and stuff, of course there has been more trolls and bitter people coming through, but we just don't pay them any mind, because that's what they want more than anything. They want attention, they want validation, so I don't really give it to them. I just boot them off and that's it. Yeah. So yeah, crazy, right? Crazy story. So if you are interested in looking into that in more detail, I highly recommend checking that one out, because that one's wild. Okay, obviously, use discretion is advised, but yeah, I didn't have any energies, or like I didn't pick up on any mad energies when I was just reading about it or listening to her. But when they started like showing the house and stuff, that's when I was a bit like, yeah, different story. Yeah, so that's that. Okay, but yeah, so story time. In terms of my stories, there's a few experiences I've had that have really stood out to me over the course of my life. Okay, I say a few, there's been a fair amount. Okay, but there's a few that I want to talk about, because like I said, there has been some that's been pretty, like, I'm not gonna lie to you, fucking traumatic. Okay, so I'm not gonna go into those ones so much, but I will talk about three cases that you might find interesting, that are slightly different from each other. So who's heard of the Hat Man? I'm sure you've heard of that. That's like widely spoken about these days, like, across the internet even. So the Hat Man. Has anyone experienced the Hat Man? Yes, no. Oh, there was a movement there. Lovely. The Hat Man. Okay. So the Hat Man. I actually, experienced that one myself. I know, like, there's a lot of lore around what the Hat Man is, where it comes from. There's so many stories online about the Hat Man. It's ridiculous. Like, it's become a whole like meme of itself, right? No, it's not an Orisha at all. Not on any level, okay? Like, I would not say it's an Orisha. No. It is, I would say it comes under the same category as shadow people, but it's something more powerful than your average shadow person, and more malevolent, it seems, as well. Shadow people can already be pretty malevolent, okay? They are very dark and parasitic in nature, but the Hangman takes it to the next level. So it seems to have more power than the others do, right? But the Hangman is a shadowy figure. It's often seen like at night, but it has been seen during the day, but mostly at night. It is like a shadow person, okay? So like imagine like a shadowy outline of a person, right? But often it's seen with like a top hat or like a fedora, something like that, right? That's why it's called the Hat Man. How I saw it, and there's some others that have seen it dressed this way as well. I saw it with like the fedora, right? And also it looked like it was wearing like a long like trench coat or something like that, a very long coat. And some people see him with red eyes, some people don't. I saw the red eyes. Some people don't see any eyes, but I saw like big glowing red eyes, right? When I saw him. And I only saw him for a short period of time, but I had a few visitations from the Hat Man. And this was going back, like easily, yeah, a good 10 years ago now. It'd be about 10 years now that this happened. And I was getting these visitations, right? This is when I was still living here before I went off on my travels, like in the UK. And interestingly, I was having a pretty rough time. I was going through some pretty heavy stuff in my personal life. There was some stuff surfacing. So it didn't surprise me in a way that this kind of entity would make an appearance at that time, right? Because it's drawn to, heavy energy and emotions, right? So yeah, there was a few instances at that time that I saw this figure. It would be at night. The first time scared the absolute living hell out of me. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, I was absolutely terrified because I was laying in bed, minding my own business. I just got into bed. That's the thing. I wasn't asleep. I wasn't even that tired, but I just wanted to shut down for the evening. So I got into bed and I just remember like seeing something like shift near my wardrobe, like some shadow. Like, it was very fast. I was like, what is that? And then, there was nothing for a few moments. And then suddenly, I just saw like a shadow growing in the corner of my room. I was like, what is that? And I couldn't see at first like what it was supposed to be. I just saw that there was a shadow, right? So I kind of ignored it. I think I was doing something on my phone. I put my phone away. I look up and there it was, like fully manifested, right? Just staring at me from the corner. It was like I said, dressed the way I described. It was pitch black, right? I didn't have any lights on. There was maybe a little trickle of light coming from the window, okay, from outside, like from the moon, but that's about it. And maybe a little bit of street light, but barely anything because I had mostly the curtains drawn. But there was a tiny bit of light, but aside from that, it was dark in there, okay? These things, right? The Hat-Man shadow people, they are so dark. They were what you would call Vanta black, right? Like pitch black, blacker than black, like the blackest black you can possibly perceive. Like, even if you were in a pitch black room, it would stand out against the darkness of everything else. That's how dark this entity was, right? Literally Vanta black. And the energy coming off of it was so malevolent. It was terrifying. It's like it literally triggers that fear response, right? Very primal, right? It's a very primal feeling where you just have to get away. Like, I'm in danger. I need to get away. This thing is not normal. It's not human. It's not natural. It doesn't mean me well. I need to get the hell out of it. Like, it literally makes you feel like that, right? And that's what it wants. It enjoys seeing people afraid. It enjoys feeding off of that fear, right? That's why it shows up in such a way. But it is a very malevolent energy. It didn't really do anything. It was just standing there observing me, right? That's all it was doing initially, just observing. Walked around a little bit, but mostly was just standing there. It was like it just wanted to gauge what my response would be, what I would do. Obviously I was just there freaking out, but just laying there like I couldn't speak, I couldn't move, I couldn't do anything. I was scared out of my mind. And then after a while, it went, and I couldn't sleep for ages. It took me a long time before I actually fell asleep that night. But like I said, I saw it again a few times. It never directly spoke to me. Like I said, it would just mostly hang around. And it's like, it's almost like there was a bit of telepathic communication going on, right? One of the last times I saw him. And it was like basically telling me like it was going to come for me. Like I will see it again, that sort of thing. Just more fear tactics, So I just basically started like praying, connecting with the divine, sending my wishes out there, wanting to cleanse the energy. It was like, make sure this thing never comes back, all the rest of it. And I'll do what I need to do to, work through what I'm going through and heal so I don't attract this energy, because obviously I'm not in a good place. So, as someone who is tapped in, if you're not in a good place and you're emitting so much energy, but there's like a very heavy, like negative charge to it because of your emotions, that can draw them in very easily. So I was like, okay, I really need to like change my environment and work through this stuff. So that's what I did, right? But yeah, it was terrifying. I'm not going to lie to you. An encounter with something like that is absolutely terrifying, especially the first time, because it literally triggers a response that you cannot explain. It's not something you can rationalize, right? It's just innate. It is literally that primal fear at its core, right? Yeah. Like literally, if you were, a caveman or a cave woman and you're in the presence of like a saber-toothed tiger or like a massive frigging lion or something, it kind of triggers that sort of fear, but it's less rational because you can't comprehend what the hell you're perceiving. Like, what is that? It's not something natural. It's not something of this world, right? Of this plane. So yeah, no, that to me belongs definitely in the same sort of category as shadow people. They're like entities that are kind of trapped between like the 4D and 3D. Okay, it's very much on the surface there, but very, very dark. Okay, very distorted, very malevolent. Okay, very much so. Like there is nothing good from that energy whatsoever. So if you haven't experienced it, good. Hopefully you never will, because it's not pleasant. Okay. So that's like, yeah, that was pretty intense experiencing that one. Like, because I could talk about shadow people all the time. Like I saw them a lot around that time, especially, a lot of shadow people. And I did as well when I was living in Greece. When I moved to this island, just outside Athens, I saw a lot of shadow people sort of near the garden next door to mine, and even in my garden and stuff. But that's a whole nother story for another time, because that place was fucked. Okay, we'll get into that another time. So yeah, but it's, out of shadow people, that was definitely the worst type of entity that I came across, because it was just so much stronger and more malevolent. Like there was real intelligence behind it. I've had other shadow people literally get up in my face and try and scare me and threaten me and stuff, like literally. But that actually was way worse, because I knew that there was real intelligence behind it and it had the potential to do more harm, right? Like it was more powerful. So, and at that time I had no idea what the hell I was dealing with, because I'd never encountered it before, right? And like I said, this is going back some years, so I was still very much running from my gifts, running from my experiences to do with the spiritual, because I was just like, I don't want to touch any of this, I've seen too much negative stuff. I don't want to touch it, So yeah, it was a different time for sure. I just got back, had to feed the pets, no problem. The mental image I got was of Cade Bane from Star Wars with how you described the Hat Man. Cade Bane. Yeah, it's exactly that. It's exactly that. I wonder if they based it on the Hat Man, because it kind of looks like that. Okay, yeah, he's more like a cowboy, but still, it is so similar to that. Just imagine the coat being like wider. Yeah. and it just all being blacked out like a black figure with glowing red eyes. That's literally the Hangman, for sure. Yeah, and crazy. So yeah, there was that. Okay. Now I will tell you about a crazy experience that I had when I was at university. Now this one is it's something that still every now and then it racks my brain, okay? Because I still do not have answers to this one, right? It's one of those things that I feel like is always going to come back around to haunt me eventually because I just don't have the answers that I need. And it's like, and it's infuriating. You'll understand why. This is 100% true, okay? I'm telling you exactly how I experienced it from how I experienced it and the conversations I had with the people that were involved at the time, okay? So I'm at university, okay, way back when. I'm not going to tell you when, okay? I'm in university and, you know, it's fast approaching my second year, right? I'm at the end of my first year at university. The summer's approaching and I'm like, fuck, I still don't know where I'm going to live next year because I was living on campus at the time, right? So I had my dorm and my partner at the time, we was at the same university. He was in the halls next to my building. So his building was next to mine. And we were like, okay, we need to move. So we need to find somewhere to live because everyone's taking up all the places real fast. We're not going to have anywhere to go. So we ended up deciding to move essentially to like the next town along. So I went to university in Wales. And, you know, the next town along was like just across the bridge. And it's a really cute place, okay? Yeah, okay, it's further out to get to, you know, the lecture halls and stuff, but it's a really cute place. So I was like, okay, we could probably move there. That'd be cool because everything in the actual town itself was basically gone at this point. We left it really last minute. So yeah, my friend told me about this place, okay? They were already like signed up to move in and everything. They said, oh yeah, there's still a couple of rooms going. It's a big place, you know, there's like extension upon extension. I know most of the rooms are taken, but there's still a few rooms left, or like there's a couple of rooms left. So we're like, okay, cool. So yeah, we'll probably take it. You know, we checked it out. We thought, yeah, it looks okay. We can take it, right? So I mean, we didn't really have a major tour, to be honest. It was just a quick look around, you know. And I was like, yeah, okay, cool. So yeah. We agreed to move in. And then it was literally like one of my last few days there, right? I had a really messed up trip back because I actually went home to visit some family and then I came back for a bit for like a few weeks and then, you know, we broke up. So I was on my way back home, way back to university. I was on the train and I had this horrible feeling, right? This hasn't happened like a ton of times in my life, but I always remember this feeling whenever it comes. I know it means it's like a bad omen. It's like an omen of death for me, right? I feel it. So I felt this, and this was one of the first times I really felt it in a very significant way, right? It was really intense. I was on the train. I was feeling nauseous. I was overwhelmed with grief. I didn't know why. I was sad. You know, I was a mess. Like, I was just like, what's going on? Like, you know, I was trying to keep it together. I didn't want to be a crying mess. So I was trying to like, just like clear my head, you know, but I was so overwhelmed. Like, he was so potent and powerful, you know, the energy. And I was like, what is this, you know? And I couldn't help it. I just felt it in my heart. Like, no, someone's passed. I know it. I feel it. Like, someone's gone. And by the time my train pulled up, I was crying, you know, I was upset. I couldn't help it. I couldn't hold it back anymore. So my partner came to greet me, you know, was all happy to see me. And then he's like, what's wrong? Because he could see, like, I am just distraught. He's like, whoa, what's wrong? And I told him, like, something's wrong. Like, I can feel it. I feel sick, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, okay, come, let's get home and you can tell me all about it. So I got home. He made me a cup of tea. We sat down and he was like, what's wrong? And I told him, it's like, I'm telling you, I just felt it, like, just out of nowhere. It hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm telling you, someone's passed, someone's died, something's happened, something bad has happened. You know, I felt it so strong, right? And he was like, don't worry, I'm sure everything's okay. Da, da, da. Next morning, right, I'm on the bench outside my building having a cigarette because I used to smoke still then. I don't smoke anymore. Yeah, I was still smoking cigarettes at the time, so I'm outside smoking. And, I actually, no, this was before I went outside for a cigarette. Let me backtrack. I woke up, I was like just on Facebook, talking to some friends. Then I saw a post, right? This was from someone that I went to primary school with, right? And I was like, okay. So I was like, what is this about? And I looked at it and I realized that they were talking about one of our teachers. This was someone who was in my class at primary school. I think this was like my what was it, year 4 teacher or something like that. I was about like 9 years old, say something like that. I was about 9, right? So my teacher at that time. And apparently she had, they'd found out, like people had found out that she had passed, the night before. The family put up a notice and the school put up a notice because she was still a teacher at the school. And that's when my friends were like leaving messages, on like the, like the school, you have like the class photo. So you have everyone there, the teacher, and we even had our teacher assistant there. And everyone was leaving comments about it and, saying like, rest in peace, blah, blah, how much of a lovely woman she was and stuff. And I couldn't believe it. Like, wow, she died that night, literally last night. So I thought, wow, maybe that's, maybe that's what I felt, maybe that's what I picked up on, the fact that she passed. So I thought that was really sad. I wasn't close to her, obviously. Like, she was my teacher years ago for like a year, I think. But still, it was sad, So I left my condolences and stuff with the family and that. But I was like, wow, okay. Then I'm not even joking, like minutes later, I make myself a coffee, I come back. Minutes later, I get a message from a good friend of mine at the time from back home saying, oh, did you hear the news? I'm like, what are you talking about? They were like, oh, there's a club we used to go to, a rock club that me and my friends used to go into. Because it was for like 16 and up, So we used to go there. And she was like, yeah, you remember the bartender so-and-so that works there? I'm like, yeah, I remember him, right? She was like, yeah, he was found dead in his apartment last night. I was like, what? I couldn't believe it. Like 2 people in the same night. Like, come on, that's not normal. It was weird. 2 people that I vaguely knew, and I was like, okay. She was like, yeah, he was found in his apartment. They don't know exactly what happened yet, but they think like, it might have been like a heart issue or something like that. I was like, wow, that's okay. This is weird. Okay, this is getting scary. So there was that. Okay, I was like, this day's getting better by the second. This is exactly how I expected the day to start. So I grabbed my coffee. I was like, you know what, I'm going out for a cigarette because I couldn't smoke in my house. It would set the alarms off. So I went outside, sat on my bench in my pajamas, right, with my coffee and my cigarette. And that's when my friend, the guy who told us initially about the house we were moving to, he came along and he was like, okay, so I just found out something really weird. And he was like, what's that? He was like, have a look at this newspaper. And I thought, oh God, please, not more bad news. I can't deal with any more like passings or anything like that. But unfortunately it was. And weirdly enough, bearing in mind, we're in a small town in rural Wales, okay, really far out. Something like this should be plastered over the main page. It's a big deal, right? Things like this don't happen every day in a place like this. But it was like on literally like the 5th page in a small box like this at the bottom of the newspaper. And it mentioned how a student was found dead in their bedroom at a house in this town. And guess what house it was? Yes, it was the house I was moving into that September. And this was like in June. And I was just like, are you kidding me? He was like, no, I'm not kidding. Like, I've just spoken to the landlady. And I was just like, oh my gosh, why is this happening? Like, what is going on? Like, I was like, this is messed up. What's happening? Like I at that point I was just like, I'm done. Today I am done. I really was. I was done. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, but we've got to move there. He said, I know. I said, I can't go there. He died in the house. I can't go there. Like, I literally can't go there. He's like, Brenda, where are we going to move? There's nowhere to go now. Like, it's too late. Everywhere's like rented, there's only so many houses there. Like I said, it's not a massive city or anything. So I was like, oh my gosh, okay. So yeah, this is our lot, right? We're gonna have to live in a freaking house where someone's just died. Brilliant, okay. So yes, that happened. So, life went on as normal. Okay, had the summer, went back home, saw my old friends, had the summer, spent time with my partner. We then end up coming back and moving into said house in the September of that year. We moved the stuff in, he's trying to convince me that everything will be fine, da da da, and I'm still like, I can't believe I'm having to live in this house. So we move in, and already I'm feeling like it's not welcoming, it's cold, it's a very big house because they kept building extension upon extension. It was like almost like a townhouse, like multiple levels, like 4 levels and extensions at the back. It was very cold, very drafty. A lot of houses in the UK are, unfortunately. It's a very old house as well, so that doesn't help. Gets damp, stuff like that, typical, mess of a uni home, that sort of thing. But the vibe didn't feel welcoming. It didn't feel warm or inviting. I was like, this is not great. Okay. But then there was a guy that was living there that was about to move out. He was a guy from Greece, actually. He was Greek, funnily enough. That's a weird coincidence. Anyway, so he was from Greece, and he actually had been living there, I think, for a while. I didn't ask him how long, but he'd been there a while. So he was actually living there at the time when said events took place, right? I didn't directly ask him because he was a very quiet, introverted guy. I mean, he was in his 3rd year as well. So like he was just done. He was just over it, ready to leave. But yeah, he was very quiet, very introverted. He ended up moving out of the house before, like, obviously finishing his 3rd year. So I don't know where he was moving to, but I imagine he arranged something else. So yeah. But he seemed nice, polite, he even made me like a frappe and stuff, He was a nice guy, but very, very quiet, very to himself. So I didn't really get to speak to him much, but my partner did get talking to him a bit more. And I know him, right? I know him. We don't talk, we haven't spoken for years, but he's not someone who will lie and make stuff up like this. He's actually like very much more of a skeptic than I am. Like I'm way more like open-minded, obviously, with this sort of thing, but he is more like, the science way of things. It's not that I don't believe in science, obviously, but it's like he's very like rational. He's a Capricorn, put it that way. I'll tell you everything. He's a Capricorn. Okay, so you get it. So for him to tell me this, I know that he's not making it up, and I could see he was dead serious, right? So he asked him, like, it came up in conversation, like, okay, you were here, right, when that happened? He was like, yeah. He was like, what actually happened? Because the landlady obviously never told us anything. So he told him that the story was that he went out, the student, okay, was a young, like, Asian guy, I think he was. He went out drinking with his friends and stuff, came back home, had way too much to drink, passed out, woke up at some point in the middle of the night, choked on his vomit, and that's how he went, okay? And the thing is, I'm not sure who was at the house at the time because it's such a big house. And imagine a uni house where everyone is like, not everyone knows each other well. It's just, you're just renting a room, So you have people coming and going all the time. So I'm not sure I'm not sure if anyone was in the house, if anyone heard him or anything like that. And it's possible that even if someone was there, if they were asleep, they might not have heard him because he was all the way right at the top floor, like at the far end. And there's 4 floors, so it's easy that you wouldn't necessarily hear him, especially if you're like on the first floor or the ground floor, right? So, but I don't know exactly who was present at the time, but it seemed like, the house wasn't rammed at the time, okay? And certainly not on that night. I think a lot of people were still out potentially, right? So yeah, and that was the official story, right, that was given. The thing is, nobody knew at the time. So he was just there, passed on, and nobody knew that he had actually died. So, apparently days were going by, and no one had seen him. But again, that's not so weird because people come and go, right? Sometimes people end up staying with their partners. If they end up in a relationship, they live somewhere else, they can end up spending days there, or they may like take a few days out to go visit family, whatever. So no one thinks anything of it, right? It was only when there was starting to become a weird smell that the people who were actually living there at the time thought, okay, there's something weird going on. There's a weird smell coming from that room. We don't know what it is. We haven't seen him for a while. Maybe we should get the landlady involved, okay? So, yeah, because bearing in mind as well, the room was locked, right? The room was locked. So it's not like they could even get in even if they wanted to, right? So the landlady comes. They call the landlady. They're like, hey, can you check it out? We haven't seen from him. We haven't heard anything in there, but the room is locked. So can you, but it smells really bad. Can you just check what's up there or what's happening? So the landlady obviously has keys to every room, right? So, and she has because she has all the keys for the house. So she went up there, and apparently she was the one that found him, right? She actually found him on the bed. I don't know how long he'd been there for, but it must have been a while. Okay, put it that way. So it was, can you imagine? Not nice. So she actually was the one that found him and, sort of dealt with the situation. I don't know what happened with his family or anything like that. I imagine they would have been notified, obviously, but that's what he told him. And he was like, wow, okay. He said, but the thing is, there was a couple of strange things, right? If it was just a simple case of him puking, choking up on his vomit because he got too drunk and he passed out and, he choked and passed. Why is it that he was found with a carrier bag around his head and his hands tied behind his back? That's what he said. That's not what the landlady said, but that's what he told my partner at the time. And my partner was like, excuse me? Obviously that's shocking to you. He was like, excuse me? He was like, no, he had a bag over his head, tied around his head, and he had his hands tied behind his back, and the window was shut. It was firmly shut, and the door was locked. So, how is that him just choking on his vomit? Did he do that to himself, or was that someone else that did that and was able to lock up behind them, And he was just like, oh my gosh, that's a lot to hear. So, and I said to him, do you think he's telling the truth though? Could it be a lie? He was like, Random, I was looking at him. He wasn't lying, and he's like I said, that guy was so unassuming as well. He's not he didn't seem like someone who would make stuff up. He just kept to himself, and apparently he just didn't want to say any more about it, and that was it. But yeah, I knew my ex wasn't lying, he was serious. They had that conversation, and I was like, well, that just puts a whole nother spin on the situation, I'm just like, wonderful. This is getting worse by the second. Thank you. Right. So here we are in this house, not knowing exactly what happened to this poor guy. And obviously, like I said, it was so weird that the newspaper printed that much and just said, oh, a student was found. That was it. That's not something that happens every day there. So I'm like, what is going on here? It just felt so suspicious, so suspicious. And there was nothing mentioned ever since of that, right? So I was like, okay, this is already feeling very strange. So anyway, I was just going about my life, trying to just make the most of it. Obviously, my other friends, a couple of my other friends are living there as well. And of course, it doesn't take long for weird shit to start happening. We all started hearing stuff. We would hear people walking around on that floor. You go up there, no one's there. They had a room right next to his room, which I was like, I don't know how you're doing that, because I didn't even like being on that floor. I had to go up that floor because the Hoover was kept in a storage cupboard up there next to the room, or sometimes it'd actually be in the room. So I'd have to run in there, grab it, and then just leave and go downstairs. But I'd never be up on that floor if I didn't have to, right? But my friends, yeah, her and her partners, they were actually like next door. So I was like, oh my gosh. But you'd hear banging up there, and they're not there. They're downstairs, or they're not even in. And you'd hear like someone walking around or like banging up there, like someone's actually going about their life up there, but there's no one there. There's even been a couple of times where I went up there just to check, and there was no, like, to make sure, even opening the room, and there's no one there, and you'd hear like something open, you check, and there'll be like, especially in the kitchen, this happened a lot in the kitchen. You go in the kitchen, and suddenly one of the cupboards would just be open, the door would be open, and you're like, no one's been in there, or no one even touched it. There was even a time where I'm just literally stood there washing up. I turn around and I saw that the door was open. It was closed. It was closed. I literally saw it. It was closed. But I turned around and it was open. It wasn't always massively open, but it would be slightly open. And I'm just like, there's no window open. There's no breeze. There's nothing that would make that open. Like, how do you account for that? So there was a lot of weird stuff like that at first, that was going on. And, at first I was like, okay, if I mention this, people are going to say I'm just like, trying to freak people out or whatever. But over time, obviously we started talking about it, and everyone started mentioning all the weird stuff they noticed. And it was very similar stuff, right? Like banging, walking around, cupboards being open, drawers being open, stuff like that. I'm like, okay, so it's not just me. Okay, that's at least that I know that. Okay, it's not just me that's experiencing this or seeing this, right? Even my ex, was experiencing all this stuff as well. There was a couple of times where we were together and we turn around and there's like a door open. I'm just like, what the hell? So yeah, there was that. There was another time where he told me that he was talking about that room. Like, a friend of ours came to visit. They were both really into like DJing and music and stuff like that. So they were like talking about the decks, setting the decks up. He put the vinyl on, he put the needle on, music was playing. It was like some reggae music, I think. And he was talking about that room. They're going into the conversation about the room. And he said every time he mentioned that room, the needle would come all the way across the tracks. And it's quite far as well. Like, you'd have to push that, like physically push it to go all the way across the way it did. But he would literally watch it move all the way across. And it kept doing that every time he mentioned that room. So him and his friend were just like, yeah, we're not going to talk about that anymore. And just continue talking about something else. So he actually told me about that, like, after he'd left, because I don't know what I was doing. I think I was in another room somewhere. I can't remember. But yeah, so that was another thing he experienced. But the thing that really was like the final straw for me in that house, was one night I was alone, of course, right? I was alone in my room. And we had like an open, like, ensuite in our room, okay? And I remember I had the shower light on because I was about to have a shower and I was gonna go out because my partner was at a friend's house in town. Like, there's a bunch of friends that live together that we were friends with, so they was having a bit of a gathering. So we was gonna go there. I told him I'll catch up with him because I don't know, I was being long, I was taking my time, I wasn't rushing, and he just wanted to, like, I think he was just sick of the house, to be honest. He just wanted to get out and do something. So yeah, he went on. I said, okay, I'll meet you over there. I'll be over when I'm done. I'll get a taxi. So, I'm like slowly procrastinating, finishing my drink, watching something on the laptop, okay? And I thought, okay, I should probably like actually get in the shower. I turn around and my shower light started flickering, and I was like, what is that? It wasn't flickering just a second ago. And I was like, oh, maybe it's something with the light, maybe the bulb's going, I just thought it was the bulb, it was coming to an end. But no, then it went solid. It was fine. I was like, okay, weird. I was like, well, this is an old place and I don't trust the electrics by any means. So, I just kind of wrote it off. So I sat down anyway. So I thought, okay, you know what? Like, I'm just going to put some like music on, right? Good vibes. So I put some music on that I really like, that just makes me feel good and stuff. And I'm not even joking, right? I put the music on, and like literally like 20 seconds into the song, the light started going absolutely insane. Like, in the shower, it was like flickering like mad. And I was like, what is that? And then I noticed like the music went off, and I was like, why is the music off? So I checked, like the stereo was still on. The song was still playing on my laptop because it was connected to my laptop, the stereo. Oh, that's weird. It just disconnected for a second. I don't know if you guys saw that. The live just literally like disconnected and it said reconnecting and it just came back like that. Okay, weird. So yeah. That was happening. The light was flickering. The sound went off. And I was like, what happened? So I checked, but it was like the song was still playing. It's just the sound would been turned off, like turned down. So I was like, how is that possible? Because I didn't touch it at all, you know. Like I thought, okay, the remote is over there, you know, it's across the way from me. I'm not leaning on it, like leaning on it or touching it in any shape or form, right? There's nothing touching the remote, it's over there. And the dial is obviously on the stereo, like here, and you have to crank it, you know, to actually turn it down, you know. And then I checked the stereo remote. There was no batteries in it. And I remembered, oh my gosh, yeah, we haven't even replaced the batteries in it. We just took them out. There's no batteries in it. So I just left it there. And then I put the music back on, like literally on the dial, like of the stereo. I turned it up. And then all of a sudden it happened again. But this time I saw it at the corner of my eye, like it caught my eye because I saw the display. And I literally saw the numbers going down, you know, on the actual stereo display, like the volume, the numbers were going down. And I was like, no, this is wrong. Okay. How does that happen? How can that happen? You have to literally turn that. You can't use the remote. There's no batteries in it. You have to literally crank it. How is that going down right now? You know, I started to get, I'm not joking. I'm not gonna lie to you. I started getting really scared then. I was really freaked out. Um, and then yeah, like I think it was about like maybe 10 seconds later, I cranked it back up, okay? And the same thing happened again. The light started going crazy. I jumped up, scared of my brain. I turned, I saw something like move across my window, and then that's when I saw a black distorted face and I ran out like crying. I'm not even joking. Like when I saw that face in my window, like an anguished, distorted, like black shadowy face, I literally like grabbed my keys, grabbed my purse, my phone. I didn't even bother having a shower and getting changed and made up or anything. I just grabbed my stuff. I called my boyfriend. I was in tears. You know, I was like, I can't do this. I can't be in this house. Like, I need to get out. I'm scared. Like, something bad's going to happen. And he was like, okay, just come over. Just come over. So I just called a taxi. I just went straight there. I didn't even want to go home that night. I was so scared. Like, it freaked me out. Like, just all of those things that were happening. No, that was like the final straw for me. I was like, we need to leave this house, you know. Um, and yeah, I did. Obviously, at the end of that year, I did end up leaving that house. But man, that place was fucked. Like it was really fucked. I just felt like, you know, there was a lot of bad energy there because of obviously something bad happened. And the fact that no one knows exactly what happened, like it's still something, like I said, that every now and then, like not all the time, but like obviously maybe like once a year or something will remind me of it. And it just plagues my mind. Like I need to know what happened to that boy. Like I was so like disgusted with how it was just left, like his story just not being known. Um, you know, I found it infuriating. And the fact that the paper just was like, oh, this happened, you know, it's like, what the hell? So flippant. No one spoke of it. And it was like it didn't happen, you know? Like, I was like, what the fuck? This is somebody, you know, this is somebody. Um, and yeah, I even after that, like even years after that, I was looking to see if there's been any mention of that ever since. Cannot find anything about it, nothing at all online. There was only ever that one tiny article. I wish I'd kept it now, that paper from my friend at the time, but I didn't think about it, you know. I was just like, what is happening at the time? But no, like that's something that's always been there with me. Like, what happened to that boy, you know? Like, why is his story not being told? I felt like he wanted it to be told. He wanted it to be known. He wanted to be heard, you know, and it got to the point where, like I said, you know, other people were experiencing stuff. We actually like had house parties there regularly just to try and like change the vibe, to try and like transmute the energy. A friend of mine who was like, you know, quite spiritual as well, she was an artist, you know, very eccentric and very creative, and she would paint all this like really colorful pretty paintings and put them everywhere, and all this like bright decorations, just to try and like liven the place up because it was so dark and heavy and oppressive, right, the energy. So, and yeah, having to live there for a year, it was not easy. I can tell you that now. But then again, like, there's been other places I've lived in that's been haunted as hell as well. So, like, even more so than that place. So, yeah. But it's not pleasant at all. I can tell you that now. But that place is that's the one that really bothered me, you know, because it's not just like shadow figures or whatever. Like, where my family live, that whole area is just absolutely infested with shadow beings. Like, they're just everywhere. It's just that area is so supercharged with negative energy because of like all of the stuff that happened in that area, like the wars in the past, you know. And they believe that there's still loads of like undiscovered remains from, you know, past ancient wars still beneath the ground, so I'm not surprised. And just, you know, the vibe of the people there doesn't help either. So yeah. But in terms of like a home, yeah, no, this place was fucked. It just no. And it just bothered me so much because, you know, obviously I have to be careful what I say, but put it this way, my landlady was very sketchy. So I don't believe she would have told all of the facts anyway. Because even when I moved into the home, I mentioned some things that needed to be fixed, repaired, okay? And she was like, yeah, if you let me know what needs doing, we can take a look and we'll sort it out. So I actually took pictures, you know, because she kept saying she was going to do it and she didn't do it. Because she said she was going to do it like immediately within the first few days or the first week or so, right? And she didn't. So I took pictures of all the things that was wrong, right? And also to cover my ass, so she couldn't say like, oh, you did that, right? So I took pictures straight off the bat to show this is wrong, this is wrong, this is broke, this was already like this. So she can't say, oh, like I did it, because it has dates assigned to it as well, right? So I sent her the pictures by email. I come back from uni one day, and bearing in mind, she's the only one, aside from my partner, who has a key to that bedroom. My camera was gone. It was literally on the side. I come back, it's not there. How do you explain that? You know, and it was only after I sent her the pictures of the things that was wrong with the place that my camera disappeared. I couldn't prove that, you know, it was anything to do with her, but it just was very suspicious, you know, things like that. And then we had a couple of instances where, you know, she wanted to accuse me of not paying rent when I had, or was complaining that I paid it late, but I explained why it was a little bit late. And, you know, I was not doing well financially at the time. I was a poor student. There was like no jobs in that area as well. Like, and at that time I just started modeling as well. So I was literally like, the few gigs I could do around uni, I was doing, and I was surviving off of that pretty much, you know, because my loan at the time wasn't even like covering my rent, you know. So I was fucked financially. But you know, I did pay her, obviously. She got her money, but there was just a couple of times where it was a bit late, and she was like really nasty about it, stuff like. So honestly, I did not trust her for anything. I don't believe that she gave like an honest account of what actually happened or what she saw, right? I think she just said that to like brush it off. But I'm more inclined to believe what the Greek guy said, you know, how he was found, than him, oh yeah, he just choked on his vomit because he was too drunk. You know, I'm more inclined to believe that maybe the other guy mentioning like, you know, bag over the head, hands tied behind the back, maybe there was something to that. Just saying. Can't prove it, can't say anything, you know. But I'm just saying, you know, based on everything and the vibe and the weirdness around it and how like the story has been essentially buried, there is something wrong there. Okay, there's something very freaking wrong, and it's something that's stuck with me ever since, because I don't have any answers. So I do think sometimes, maybe it's something I should look into myself, being the position I'm in, where I can find these things out. Maybe I should, maybe I should try and find out through my own means. Because it does bother me, for that boy's story not to be known, that is a problem for me. I mean, that's the whole reason why I even have this channel, to bring certain things to light that remains in the dark, okay, that needs to be brought to light. So yeah, and his story absolutely should be told. So this is partially why I wanted to share it, because yeah, it's one of those really messed up instances where there was a lot more to it than just like a haunting. There was a backstory and a lot of weirdness, shadiness. There's things not adding up. I don't know. And just the fact that the story has been essentially buried, that's insane to me. That would be like all over the news normally, but even if it was like how it was being described, like an accident, it would still get more coverage than it got. So I don't know, that one was really, that's something that's just stuck with me, to be honest with you. So yeah, that one was a bit long, I know, but I felt like, to do it justice, I had to tell you the whole thing, right? So that's what happened in that situation. And like I said, that one still plagues me to this day. So I'm just gonna read some of your comments, because yeah, I really just had to get into that one a little bit. My spirit teams use a lot of pop culture reference for me. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me, actually. There's a lot of references that are actually relevant, to be honest. I'm so glad you're telling this story. I've experienced this many times. I think it's related to people doing black magic. I felt that, though. I felt like there was something very dark and nefarious to it, like there was something very wrong there. So I don't think it was necessarily to do with my teacher that passed from cancer. I think it was just unfortunate. Same with the guy in the bar. But with that boy, there was something is wrong, And I think that's why I felt it so overwhelming me. And the fact that I picked up on multiple situations as well, it just intensified the energy. Like, it was very overwhelming for me. Like I said, I couldn't keep it in anymore. I was just a crying mess, But I don't know if I was also picking up on what he was feeling at the time, I don't know. Oh my God, yeah, it was bad, Like, and I'm telling you, that's exactly what happened from my perspective, right? Just from what I directly experienced, the conversations I had with people, that's exactly how it was, right? No embellishment or anything. That's exactly as it was. So do with that what you will, But, I think you were tuning into the feelings he was having before he passed. Right? That's what I feel like. Yeah. That guy just wants to go home. I'll say some prayers for him. Yeah, please do if you want to, because it's just sad. Either way, it's just sad, And I feel like I need to find out, because I feel like that's just something I'll just constantly have hanging over my head if I don't look into that, because yeah, that's like I said, I've had crazy experiences. I've had some really like difficult experiences myself, but that one just like bothers me, to not know what happened to that boy, that bothers me. It's one thing when it's yourself, but when it's someone else, and you feel like something is being like, hidden, or there's something shady about it. I don't know. It just rubs me up the wrong way entirely. It really does. People who have tried to sacrifice me in really dark rituals, it's more common than people think. A lot of people just vanish every year. Absolutely. It is absolutely widespread. That's why there's so many people that resonate with those readings that I have received, and those messages that I've got, because there are so many people who have been targeted in that way. It happens all the time. I am one of those people, unfortunately. I know I've been targeted by different groups, but that's a story for another time. But so I know it happens. I can say firsthand, it absolutely happens. Oh my, yeah. It's time people be held accountable for their actions. Absolutely, absolutely. You know, it is time. So I know that one got pretty deep and it was a little bit heavy, but yeah, it was an important one. I felt, like that's, like I said, one of the ones where I feel like it's the most in line with the kind of cases that we've spoken about. Yeah. And I do feel like there absolutely is a story that needs to be told there. So that's something I'm gonna have to look into. So yeah. So there's that. Okay. And yeah. So that's something, I feel like I will need to address sooner rather than later. But going into other experiences. Now, when it comes to having dealings with the demonic, I've had that too. Okay, right? It's not. I can promise you, it's not all been negative. Okay, I have dealt with the benevolent as well, and that's been amazing. But yeah, there was a lot of like negativity before I really got like the lighter side of things, put it that way. I think it wasn't without reason, okay? And that's because of the work that I'm meant to do. So I feel like that's why it kind of came about that way. And also, like I said, it also correlated with what I was going through at the time as well. Like when I was really starting to accept that I could perceive things and that it wasn't just something I thought I was seeing, like it was actually happening. I was going through a lot of that time. So I think that's why, I did encounter some of the heavy energies, and also the environment I was in, like I said, is quite toxic. So yeah, that's why. But no, there was definitely a lot of like positive experiences as well. But yeah, the darker ones definitely came more prominently first. Okay. And so yeah, I've encountered a lot of different entities. I've encountered angelic beings. Okay, it doesn't happen every day, I will tell you that now, but I have encountered them, I've seen them, I've communicated with them. That's happened. In terms of demonic entities, that's happened also. And there has been a few instances where I was like physically attacked. Like, for example, when I was being oppressed, this was like when I was living in Spain, say like 2016. Okay. At that time, I was under like heavy oppression from the infernal forces. Okay. Because again, I was really like my big awakening was happening at that time. Things were like really accelerating for me, and I was unlocking a lot of stuff. So of course, that's when they decided to, try and, get at me, right? When I was at my most vulnerable, as they do, right? Because obviously everything's like coming to the surface. You're having to go through the dark night of the soul, do the shadow work, come to realize all this stuff about yourself. You're unlocking so much and you're having to go so deep within yourself. You're very vulnerable at that time. So of course they thought now's the time to strike. So yeah, I had a lot of attacks at that time. I was getting like really horrible dreams with these entities appearing and threatening me and stuff like that. I had instances where something was grabbing my foot, moving my calves, grabbing at me. I was scratched. I was bitten. I had bruises when I woke up on one day. Well, that happened on two evenings, right, where I actually woke up and had bruises, but there was only on 2 occasions that happened. I actually had an instance where I was talking to my friend in my room and I felt something do that, like scratch me like that. And I felt it like on my arm, and you could literally see like a really faint red mark from where it just like swiped me. So that was when it got like physical. That was terrifying because again, at the time I was just like, what's happening? I was scared that, I don't know, I was going to be like seriously harmed or possessed or something. I don't know. I didn't know what was happening, but I was scared. So that was really terrifying at that time as well. because you just don't know, right? It's so foreign and so new. It's like, what do you do in this situation? And when you're around people that don't know what to do, you're just like, oh my gosh. So yeah, I had a really intense battle at that time. I'm like I said, I'm not gonna go into that now, but yeah, that was, put it this way, I had 3 days of hell at that time where I was literally fighting nonstop. It was brutal, really, really brutal. But I came out at the other side of it, and yeah, that was the start of things really shifting for me. So yeah, it's not all bad. I mean, that's the thing, you got to take the good with the bad. But at that time, I was having some really like benevolent experiences as well, like especially after that experience, I started to seeing like more angelic beings and, having like these really powerful like channelings and downloads and direct communications and stuff. So it was almost like baptism by fire, preparation for the warfare ahead. That's what it felt like. So it's kind of like, well, if you can survive this, then you'll be fine. It was pretty much like that. So I don't know if they were like, trying to see if I could deal with what's coming, but it kind of felt like that. So yeah, some really crazy experiences. But at the same time, even though it can be scary, like anyone will tell you, and obviously those of you who've had like some, not so fun encounters, it can be terrifying, it can be fear inducing, it can be confusing as well. It can be like, a shock to the system. But I honestly believe that we're more than equipped to deal with whatever comes our way. We just need to know that protection is there, that we're not alone, we have support, and that the main thing that like malevolent entities want is to make you feel like you don't have power and that you don't have authority, and that you should be afraid of them because they're bigger than you, they're better than you, they're more powerful than you, they can do all these things to you. But the reality is you actually have command over it. You have power over it. It covets what you have, right? And a lot of these entities are bound by certain rules that don't necessarily apply to us in the same way, right? Like we have more freedom than they do. We have life. We have, I like to hopefully think like divine spirit soul, right? We have that connection with source. So of course there's a lot of jealousy and resentment that can come from entities that have that disconnect from source on some level, right? So that's important to remember as well, that a lot of that comes from that resentment. And especially if you ever do find yourself, and hopefully I pray you never don't, but if you ever, I'm touching wood, by the way, this is a wooden table. But if you ever do find yourself in a situation where you've encountered something demonic, remember, like, they are jealous of you. They are afraid of you because you have that connection to source, and they resent the fact that they have been cut off, essentially, right? They don't have that blessing. They don't have that favor. They don't have that protection. They don't have that loving support, that loving connection to source, and they despise that, the fact that we have it and they don't. That's the main underpinning as to why they come for us the most, because of that. Yeah, even the worst of them, even the biggest and baddest of them, I can promise you at the core, it's like they are so broken and they're so hurt by the fact that they have been renounced, denounced, and cut off. Yeah. So it's actually like, when you think about it from another perspective, it's actually kind of sad. And that's the thing. People always find it's like, I actually had a comment the other day on like the video I was talking about where like an older woman was attacking a divine feminine, possibly with their son. And someone commented, I think, on that reading where they were like, oh, how can you feel sorry for these people, feel sorry for the person they targeted? And it's like, it's not that I feel sorry for the people who are doing these horrific things. I pity them, and I do feel a bit sad for them, but it's not like I feel sorry for them, like, oh, poor them. No, it's like I pity them and I feel sad for them because it's like, Imagine being in that position. Imagine cutting yourself off to that extent, right? And then being bitter and lonely and sad that you have lost that connection with essentially like the very thing that brought you into existence in the first place, you know, outside of your parents obviously, but you know, they are the vessel, the actual force that governs all things, and you're literally cutting yourself off from that, and then you don't have a way to regain that connection or that favor or that support. It's like, you know, feeling like the neglected child, right? The abandoned child or whatever. Like that's heavy, you know, that's heavy. So that's what I mean by that, you know. But yeah, it happens, you know. And that's why I say to people, you know, like no matter why you don't like a person, you know, if they're not doing anything to you, just leave them alone, okay? Even if you feel like they have something you don't, or, you know, if you feel like, I don't know, whatever the case is, why people do things, usually it's because of jealousy, because they feel like they have something they don't, because they're different or something like that. But you know, just live your life. Why do you care? You know, there's no point hating people just because they're different or whatever. It's not worth sacrificing yourself over, you know. So I don't know. That's how I feel about it. But yeah, the energies have been absolutely nuts recently, as we mentioned earlier. I didn't know this, like it was coming. I felt it, that things were going to start ramping up again towards the end of the year. I did feel that, like the respite was coming to an end, you know, and I was enjoying that, to be honest with you, because my gosh, you know, I'm not only like holding the fort in terms of my own personal life and situations, but obviously being someone who's like supporting the collective. You're literally like, you know, on the front lines, especially if you are somebody who's like a front liner, if you are like a spiritual warrior, you know what I mean? Like when you're on the front lines, like you just got everything coming at you all at once. You know, it's not just like people, you do have these entities gunning for you, you know, because you're not only looking out for yourself and those like immediately around you, you're looking out for, you know, the greater good, you know, for the collective. So that definitely puts a target on your head, but you know, someone's got to do it. So, you know. But yeah, and that's why I feel like as well, that's another reason, not just because of the channel growing, but I also feel like because of the energy, you know, and obviously like twitching out karmics and needing like that hit, you know, they're like getting tapped on the shoulder to come for certain people, I'm telling you. Because the way just recently, like I've had more people like trying to attack me, it's really funny, you know. But it doesn't like really bother me, to be honest. Like, yeah, I don't like it. Obviously, it's not pleasant, and I'd rather people didn't. But it doesn't surprise me, and it doesn't faze me. You know, it's like I'm well equipped at this point, so it doesn't really bother me on that level. I just prefer if they didn't, you know. But it is what it is. So yeah, you may notice like some people malfunctioning around this time, okay? And if you see that, you're best just like staying away from those energies. I also wanted to mention this before. I was gonna do a reading around this, but I decided not to, because I can just literally mention it. But I've noticed as well, like there are these days, it's something I've noticed more and more over the last couple of years, but especially like I'd say over the last year, I've noticed like whilst like possession cases are very rare, like full-on possessions, I do feel like a lot more people have parasitic entities attached to them, like parasitic like attachments. Definitely. I can literally like clock it as soon as someone like walks past. As soon as I see someone, I can tell if they have an attachment or not. And there is a lot of them that do that don't even know it, you know. And it's like even the energy, like, and I'm not talking like, you know, maybe like a shadow person lurking around them. No, I'm talking about something dark, something malevolent or demonic literally like attached to these people. I wouldn't say they've necessarily like possessed them, but they're attached to them in some shape or form. And I can literally see it in their expression, in their energy, you know. So it's crazy. But I do feel like that's a result of a lot of psychological and spiritual warfare that's been conducted on the collective. We've mentioned that a couple of times. So who knows, maybe we will hear of more of these cases in more recent times. I mean, yeah, there are instances where it comes up here and there, but it's not that often, especially for it to become like quite well known. Like for example, the Latoya Ammons case. But I feel like we may see more of those because of that. Because it does seem like, you know, they've definitely been upping their numbers and sending a lot more of them here. So there is that. And I feel like that's why the divine has been playing more of a direct role in more recent times, because generally they like to be more passive. They don't like to directly get involved, right? They don't like to be like right there and, you know, up close, right? They don't like to interfere to that extent. But I feel like things have got so out of hand, like they've forced their hand and they've had to be more direct. They've had to be more involved in that way, you know. So that's why we're now seeing situations where, you know, those who are really just consumed with that energy are just being flattened, you know, and, you know, the entities that are thinking they can run amok and get away with things, they're being dealt with. Like, the divine is not playing at this time, I can tell you that now. Yeah. Because even the universe is like reacting to it as well, because things got really kind of out of whack for a while there. But I do feel like that's now starting to equalize. But of course, there's always a pushback, and that's what we're seeing at the moment. So there's a lot of energy about, that's for sure. And especially like the entities and the people that don't want to, you know, exactly transition or go to where they belong, then yeah, there's going to be resistance, there's going to be pushback, but they have no choice. That's going to happen regardless. So yeah. And it's like, even in my cases where, you know, I've had certain people really gunning for me, like, I can tell you now, they got a lot of warnings, a lot of warnings, you know. And if they don't listen, they'll have to deal with the consequences. It's as simple as that, you know. Because if you're not going to listen, if you're not going to learn, you're going to keep pushing your luck. It is what it is, you know. The universe is not messing about. I'm telling you. Yes, they're scared of love. Yeah, they are. You can command them into the light if you, as the divine, to give their name. I love and appreciate your channel so much. You have definitely changed my life more than once. Oh, oh my gosh, that is, I was not ready for that comment. That is such a beautiful thing to say. Thank you so much, Ariel. Oh, that's so sweet. Like, that makes me want to cry. But no, that's really sweet. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. It just got me right in the heart. I wasn't expecting that. I was like, oh, that's really sweet. But no, I appreciate that so much. Thank you. I'm glad that I could help in some way. But like I said, you know, you're my peeps. You're my tribe, you know. I gotta look out for you guys as well where I can, because I know like shit is getting crazy out there, okay? So you know, I really believe that, you know, sort of mutual understanding, respect, support, you know, doing that work for ourselves and just, you know, encouraging people along the way. That's what it's all about, you know. Like, no one can save you. You have to save you, but you certainly can be supported by your tribe, you know, others that understand you and, you know, the divine along the way. Absolutely. And vice versa. And I really believe in that, you know. So, yeah. Hi there. Hi, K-Boy. Please, can you spin your head in a circle, shake your head up and down, please? If I was possessed, I'm sure I could, but I'm not, so yeah, sorry. No No exorcism moves from me, unfortunately. Area 3 strikes, you're extricated from reality. Yeah, I can believe that for sure. Yeah, because I'm telling you that people have been doing entirely too much, okay? Entirely too much. And it just got really out of hand to the point where people started to think that there were no consequences, that they were untouchable, okay? Because of the little cliques that they form and stuff, especially those who operate in that groupthink mentality. They think, oh, I've got my group here, so we can do stuff together and, you know, we're good. But no, it does not make a difference. Yes. Because it's like I say as well, because people like say like, oh, how comes they can do all this stuff to such and such people or a whole bunch of people and But honestly, like the truth is, it's not even about what you do, it's who you do it to. You mess with the wrong person and it's game over. Like seriously. Like it just, yeah, there's been so many instances of that. Of course, if you're running amok doing all these horrible things to all these people, then of course eventually, you know, karma's gonna get you. But you know, there are certain people you just cannot mess with, and if you do, you're gonna know about it. Yeah, and it does happen. We see that, right? So yeah. But unfortunately, a lot of the time people have to learn the hard way. So yeah. I mean swing my head. What, you mean like headbang or something? People have been asking me some really random questions on this. Like, can you do this? Can you do that? Feel like a performing like monkey or something, like a little you know, like a circus act or something. Can you do this? Can you do that? But yeah. So I don't know, crazy times. That's all I can say. Crazy, crazy times. And you know, I honestly do feel like, you know, there are a lot of people who are kind of stuck between realms that want to be heard, you know, that want to be understood. And that's why they're trying to reach out to people that are open-minded enough to be prepared to listen and stuff, you know. I know like a lot of like paranormal investigations and stuff has become very popular in recent times. You know, especially even on YouTube, there's so many teams doing that now. And they go to some very cool places. I'm not gonna lie, they go to some very interesting places, some of them. But I just think you need to be very mindful of how you approach something like that. You know, I'm not always on board with how some people address those entities or spirits or environments, you know. But you know, each to their own. You know, it's not my place to say anything really. You know, whatever happens happens, I guess. But you know, I just think especially places where there is a lot of history and it's not all pleasant, like you have to be very careful, very cautious, and very mindful how you approach it. Yeah. But it's interesting how, like, you know, there's so many different opinions of things of this nature, you know. And even like when we were talking about the Warrens, right? They're very controversial. You know, some people were calling them like charlatans and liars and stuff like that, but other people say no, they're legit. But you know, I guess it depends on what you believe and your own thoughts on it, you know. Because it's even like with us, you know, like doing readings and picking up on energies and channeling and stuff like that, and even our experiences, right? People could say, "Oh, you're just making it up," you know, but only you know, right? And those that were there at the time, if someone else was there, so it is what it is. It's all about what your perception is as well, you know. But at this point, like, yeah, I've had way too many different experiences and too many bad shit experiences. And several of them involving other people present as well, not just myself. And they've experienced it too. So, yeah. It's interesting. I think a couple of you guys mentioned like ghost box sessions and stuff, like spirit box sessions. I actually did a couple recently because that was something I was curious about. I actually found a really good app for that. And yeah, the stuff that came out was, it was nuts, you know. At first, it was like pretty dead in the beginning. And then that was it. Once it started firing, there, like, especially that first session, wow, there was a lot that came through. I think in the end, like over the course of a couple of hours, there was like 130 words. It was insane. Okay. It was insane. And very specific as well, you know, like you want to say, oh, could you clarify on that? Sure. You know, stuff like that would come up, you know. Or if I ask like, you know, like who are you speaking of? They'll say the name, you know, and I'm just like, okay, that's crazy. You know, very specific things like that. So interesting. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. When it comes to ghosts in particular, like say the spirits of people who were once amongst the living, do you think like their conscious awareness is still here, like they're still very much here just in spirit form, or do you think that's more like a residual thing mostly that we're seeing, sort of like echoes of moments in time rather than it being like intelligent hauntings, right? Do you think that because that's necessarily them or something else pretending to be them, or do you think like, you know, a lot of these situations are actual people just that haven't been able to move on? What do you think about that? I'm just curious on what you guys think about those things, because I know that there's a lot of different opinions on that subject. I would say echoes. Okay, yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I think both, because time is relative. It absolutely is. It absolutely is. It's very different once you've well, I say transferred, but you know, when you're no longer living, yeah, that's a entirely different thing. Even when you're amongst the living, for those of you who have astral projected, yeah, I imagine it's a lot like that because time is what's time when you project, you know, like you could be gone for like minutes and it'll feel like hours. You could be gone for hours and it feels like minutes. You know, I've been in deep meditative states and I think I've been gone for like, you know, 15 minutes and I come back, I look at the time, I'm freezing and it's been like 3.5 hours. That legit happened. And I was hungry as well because I was out of my body for quite a while, 3.5 hours. I was like, fuck, you know, and I felt cold, you know, it wasn't cold, but just because I was gone for so long. Yeah. So that was pretty crazy. But I've done that a couple of times where I thought, oh, it wasn't long, and it was long. So yeah. For instance, night marches in the mountains of Hawaii. There were warriors that died in battle. I've encountered them before. Oh wow, that's interesting. So I'm guessing you saw them like walking, like marching. You saw them like with their weapons and stuff. See, that's the thing, you know, like I've seen both, and I feel honestly, like this is just my opinion. I feel like there is a lot more residual hauntings than, like, say, like active, intelligent hauntings, right? Yeah, people do get stuck, okay, between planes. It does happen, right? People don't always transition for various different reasons. But I feel that residual haunting is way more common. Like a lot of it is like memory on loop, pretty much. That's what I've, in terms of like, you know, the humanistic side of it, that's what I've seen the most, to be honest, than like say a ghost just walking around and stuff and, interacting with me or whatever. But like I say, but when it comes to an entity that's not a non-human entity, oh, that's a completely different ball game. That's a completely different thing. Yeah. You can hear drumming before you feel their presence. That's fascinating. Yeah. When you actually hear sounds that are relevant and then you see them, like whistling or drumming or singing or something like that. Yeah, interesting. No, that's definitely interesting. I imagine at night that could be quite scary, just hearing that. But like if you were going for a walk at night, especially by yourself, yeah, that would probably be a bit scary. Yeah, interesting though. But yeah, so yeah, I was just curious to know what you guys thought about that. And that was my kind of 2 cents as well. Like it is such a broad subject. We could talk about this all night. Wow, this is already one of my longer lives. This is 2 hours and 40 minutes, nearly 3 hours. So this has been a mammoth live. Because yeah, there was a lot to discuss. Like I said, cases that exist that are very well known, well documented, popular. And then obviously I shared with you a few of my experiences, just touched on some of those, and of course went into detail about the uni house, as I just referred to it as the uni house. Because like I said, that one was a lot. But yeah. But no, it's definitely cool to hear some of your experiences as well. Because that's the thing, being in different locations and coming across different things. Yeah, everyone's experience is somewhat different, even though there's some similarities. It's just cool to hear about different experiences and what you've seen and things of that nature. But yeah, I do feel like it's important as well, not only to be aware of what can be out there and, what you need to be wary of and stuff like that. But just like we talked about in the life, like knowing that there is divine presence, yeah, they don't tend to show up like in your face the same way, like, some of these darker entities will, because that's not their vibe. They're not there to be intrusive. They're not there to like rattle you or anything like that. I mean, look at even where the instances where like genuine angelic beings are not demons trying to disguise themselves as angels, because that's another thing that does happen, and I can attest to that because I witnessed that. Okay, so that's something else. But no, actual angelic beings or divine beings, making themselves known, making them presence known, like so you can actually see it in some capacity. They don't get all up in your business in the same way. So I feel like that's another reason why it's not talked about so much, because it's not so widely seen. Whereas something darker or more malevolent, they're going to be more all up in your business and stuff because they're trying to get a response, right? So, but no, and that's the thing, I think if you do have like some kind of divine interaction, on any level, that's something to appreciate and just be thankful for, because there's nothing that says that they have to do that, they have to come out their way to make themselves known to us. But the fact that they'll do that at times, especially when they feel like their presence should be felt, or they want to deliver a message or show some kind of encouragement or support or healing, like that is a real gift. That is a blessing, and not something to take for granted, And whenever I've had those really like powerful, like positive experiences, like that stayed with me, it made a big impact, especially in those times where I really needed it. Like that was a game changer for me, it really was. That was like, okay, yeah, like this is serious, this is real, like not only that, like, just being acknowledged and being shown that compassion, like I don't know, it's just it's just not something you can describe, is it? It's just something so like humbling and beautiful, and just like, I don't know, just all you can think is gratitude for that. I don't know. That's how I feel about it, you know. Because like I said, there's nothing saying they have to do that, but the fact that they would do that is just, I don't know, it's a blessing. So yeah. I sat in on a healing session a friend did a while ago, and I heard an angel singing. It was the most beautiful thing I ever heard in my life. Exactly. That is a gift, right? That is a gift. So, what a beautiful thing to experience. You know, when you're in the presence of something divine and you're feeling that energy. Like, I don't know. It's really beautiful, you know. And there's been a couple of experiences, like there was one in particular a couple of years ago, that just knocked my socks off, to be honest with you. It was like so powerful. Yeah. And just, I don't know, it was just life changing. It really was, like, in such a beautiful and profound way. You know, very humbling as well, very humbling, but like, oh man, it meant everything to me. So that's it, you know. That's why I say, like, if you are struggling, don't be afraid to reach out. You'll be surprised how they may respond, you know, when you least expect it. Doesn't always have to be when you're struggling or when you're going through it. Even when you're feeling good, you know, it's always good to connect and reach out and say hi. You know, that's the way I see it. Because they don't want you to just only communicate when you're feeling good or only communicate when you're feeling bad. They like the interaction. They want to bridge that connection, you know, because that's the point. You know, a lot of people have lost their connection with the divine, and that's how evil is able to get its claws into people, right? And, you know, take a wrecking ball to their lives. So, you know, establishing that solid connection with source, with your guides, with your ancestors, you know, whatever you feel is, you know, your benevolent connection, because obviously everyone has different beliefs. Like I said, whatever that means to you that is benevolent, that's worth strengthening, you know. Yeah. And I'll tell you, like, having that, even when you have like the nastiest entity, or, you know, the creepiest cryptid or whatever, or like the most spooky haunting or whatever tries to be thrown at you, it won't stand up to that. I'm telling you now, you know. Even if it's able to affect you for a time, it will pass, you know. Especially when you have that strong link, that strong connection to the divine. Yeah. There's nothing you can't overcome. Like, that's the way it is, you know. But anyway, I am just rambling at this point. It has been a long live session, to be honest with you. My brain is kind of fried. But yeah, it was just cool to share some of those experiences with you. And yeah, just to get into some of these. Okay. So my light just died. So let me just quickly change the battery pack, because yeah, it's not usually on this long, so I'm not surprised that it died. So let's just quickly swap that out. See if we can get this thing back on. Oh, and there we are. Hello. Okay. So sorry about that. Yeah, because I used it already for I think some readings earlier. So yeah, we killed it. But no, it was a lot of fun to host this little session and to talk about these things, because like I said, it's not every day I get to talk about, especially in detail. I think this was the first time I've spoken about that uni situation in this much detail in years, to be honest with you. And it was good to talk about it as well, because it's just bringing it to the forefront of my mind. Like, this is something that I need to look into for myself, you know, because otherwise it's just something that's always going to be there. And I feel like, you know, maybe it does need some support, you know, so I need to look at that. But yeah, it was awesome. I really enjoyed it. I'm glad that you guys enjoyed it as well, those of you who say you have. Um, and I appreciate those of you who shared some of the experiences you've had as well. I know it's different for everybody. Um, but yeah, it's just fascinating that so many people experience like similar things, right? And just, even talking about some of these more famous cases as well. But no doubt we'll have similar conversations in the future, obviously about different topics and stuff. But I don't doubt some of these things will probably pop back up again. Like things have a way of coming back around full circle. But it's been great. So thank you so much for those of you who tuned into the live. I know people obviously be coming in and out, and that's absolutely fine. Like I said, I hope that you found it interesting. For those who watch this back, I hope you find it interesting. Like I said, the stories that I touched up upon, these are just like brief like synopsis of what happened. Of course, you can look at it in more detail, get more information, research it for yourself if you're not aware of these cases. Okay. My own situations, like that's exactly as I experienced it. Okay, like nothing, like I said, nothing was added to it. Like that's just literally as it was. So if there was like more detail I couldn't give, it's because I literally didn't have that information. So, but yeah, and obviously the experiences where it was just like something I encountered, it was literally that, an encounter. So it is what it is, pretty much. But yeah, thank you so much for checking this out. And next week I think will be a different format. We will do primarily readings. I'm not sure what the style of read it will be yet, or the topic, the theme, but we'll have a look at that closer to the time. It will definitely be having like some kind of Halloweeny slant to it, because Halloween is just around the corner. But what's reading that will be, I'm not sure yet, but I'll see closer to the time and I'll let you guys know. Maybe I'll even put it up to a vote, who knows. But yes, there will be a tarot reading in next week's live. It will predominantly be a reading live. Okay. And just to let you guys know as well quickly before I get off the live, I actually have family visiting this weekend, so there may be a bit of a break in the readings coming up, just because I just don't have time. I've got family coming to visit, so it's a good opportunity for me to take a little break, and then I can get back at it next week on Monday. So if you don't see any more readings go up this week, that's why. It's just simply because I'm just spending a little bit of quality time with the family, and having some fun downtime, because that's definitely needed. I've been working my absolute ass off. So that'll be why. But there'll definitely be readings back on the channel as usual next week. Okay. Same with personal readings, because I've had a couple of people book personal readings and I've had to let them know that, I am going to be away this weekend. So if you are wanting a personal reading, I'll be able to do it from Monday, most likely. Okay. And then going forth, it'll be as normal. So yes, thank you so much for checking this out. If you enjoyed this session, if you enjoyed the stories, if you enjoyed the interactions, make sure you hit the thumbs up. Okay. Subscribe if you haven't already. Like I said, you definitely want to be a part of this tribe. We have a lot of fun. The people here are awesome as well. Like my actual tribe, not the randoms that come in and just like want to cause chaos, but the actual tribe are actually a great bunch. I think you'll really enjoy the interactions, especially as we continue to do more lives and things of that nature. And definitely hope to see you in another live stream. So for now, I hope you guys have an amazing weekend. Enjoy yourself, take care of yourself, stay safe. And I will see you guys again soon. So take care for now, and I'll speak to you later. Bye.